how much, ladies and gentlemen, are fish and chips where you come from? We'll go to Jason in Crewe.
Jason from Crewe, fish, chips and peas, £7.50. It's the best chippy in England.
Janice in Leeds, go.
Regarding fish and chips in Leeds, it's between £9.50 and £12.75.
Whitby, how much is fish and chips?
3 of us, fish, chips, peas, I think one of us curry sauce, 3 cans of pop, just short of 70 quid.
£70?
Split and a half of haddock with a regular chips for £8 and 10 pence, and it's by far and away one of the best chippies I've ever had.
Kenneth in Surrey, fish and chips, go.
Fish and chips in Ascot, about half a mile from where you used to live, will cost you £12 and 60 pence. Great show. Keep up the good work.
That's why I moved, because you were living there. When was the last time you had fish and chips?
A couple of weeks.
Ritz.
Couple of weeks ago.
How much? Where'd you get it from?
I think it was about 40 quid. It was in the Ivy.
Honestly, you really are. For any of you who think he's a man of the people, I nearly said you're a...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
I'm Mark Dolan, and this is Talk, the home of common sense. A very good morning to one and all. We're online, we're in-app, we're on YouTube. This is a TV show, and it's a radio show too. It is everything, and we've got 4 hours, and we've got some massive stories to get through. What a day to be hosting my first weekend show. 2 of the biggest stories of the year break whilst we're on air. The Deputy Prime Minister has stood down in a row over unpaid stamp duty. Rayner's out and Reeves is under pressure. Is this the beginning of the end for the Starmer project? And what about Angela Rayner? She's not going to go away quietly, is she? Is Angela Rayner the Labour Party's Boris Johnson, licking her wounds, waiting in the wings? Has she got her eye on the Labour Party leadership in a couple of years' time? What about that reshuffle? Which, as I'll be pointing out in my Dolan dispatch at 9 a.m. this morning, that reshuffle demonstrates the sheer lack of talent within the governing party of this country. Their squad is thinner than Spurs's. So in that reshuffle, David Lammy is the Deputy Prime Minister. Is that the man you want in charge if Starmer falls? David Lammy, mastermind himself? The man who thinks you can grow a cervix? Yikes! And our new Home Secretary goes on pro-Palestine marches. Is this Britain's first anti-Israel Home Secretary? And as Starmer's government crumbles, the opposition parties smell blood, with the small matter of one Nigel Farage raging ahead in the polls and hosting his party's conference this weekend. Is Farage the answer to Britain's problems? We'll speak to the biggest names within reform this morning. And let me tell you that 2 of the biggest stars on the Talk platform are there. Mike Graham and Jeremy Kyle, JK himself. We're trying to hook up with them. They will be, I've got to say, it's going to be the morning. They'll still be in drink from the night before. We might get some truth bombs. So MG and JK later in the show, all being well. So there we are, a very, very big 4 hours. It's a thrill to be here. I haven't been up this early since, I think, the mid-90s, but it's great to have your company. My telephone number is 0344 499 1000. That's my number. I'm giving you my number. I'm reading it out on the radio. And when you call that number, you're going to get Tommy, who is our phone operator. And let me tell you that the phone op, Claire Muldoon, brilliant political broadcaster, good morning.
Thank you. Good morning, Mark. Lovely to see you.
It's so good to you.
Normally at this time, you're actually just coming home and doing the walk of shame, I'd imagine.
I am.
Mr. Dolan.
And what your mother would call a dirty stop out.
Yes, I've been there. I just thought that myself this morning when I was coming into work.
A night owl.
Yeah.
Some would say I'm an addictive personality, but life is short, isn't it?
Life is far too short.
So I was going to say that the phone operator on today's show is Tommy, and 0344 499 1000. It's going to be such a packed show. Got some big names, including Tory grandee John Redwood at 7:45, and you won't want to miss that because I'm going to ask him, are the Tories dead? I'll ask you as well. But I want to take your calls. So I was on air just a few days ago and I had some great guests and, people from the world of politics and entertainment. Fantastic. OK, this is Talk. We attract the big names. But I've got to say, the last show I did, which was last Monday, the very best bits of that show on Monday were the calls. And I was stopped in my tracks by several of you. The articulacy, the honesty, the authenticity. Basically, it's the public that will save this country. It's democracy that will save this country in 4 years' time. And your calls demonstrated that when I was on air just a few days ago. In my old job a few months ago, I wasn't allowed to take calls. I wasn't allowed to talk to you. I'm unleashed. And I'm live, so what I want you to do is book your place on the show. And the number is 0344 499 1000. I don't know when we're going to squeeze you in. Ryan is producing today, which is an absolute thrill, because he's the guy that dragged me kicking and screaming onto this platform all those years ago. So Ryan's here, and he is going to let me know when there's time for calls, but there will be calls. So 0344 499 1000. Is Starmer, is it the beginning of the end? Are the Tories dead? And is Nigel Farage the answer to Britain's problems? Those would be three aperitivo questions for you. But let's lock in now to my outstanding guest, the fearless broadcaster and journalist, Claire Muldoon. Claire, where do we start? Is this the beginning of the end for Sir Keir Starmer?
Let's hope so. But let's start at...
Wait a minute, I thought we booked you as the lefty. I'm very confused. Whoops.
Whoops-a-daisy.
No, but actually this isn't left or right because no one likes Starmer, do they?
No, they don't. And I don't even think his party do. I think he's rudderless. I think he's steering a ship that doesn't know any direction, has got no direction, and isn't going in any direction. He's certainly not a safe pair of hands. What is it now? We're on the third phase?
Yeah.
Come on. Is he listening? Is he locked in? He's had more updates than my Apple iPhone. It's ridiculous.
It's true. It's true.
Really
it feels
ridiculous.
like deck chairs on the Titanic,
well,
doesn't it?
Everyone has used that analogy, actually, and one would think, we're actually in 2025 now. The Titanic sunk all those years ago. Have we not moved on?
Yeah,
it's ridiculous, Mark. And the thing that I cannot get my head around is the fact that they had 14 years in opposition. They had 14 years to get their chairs in order, their ducks in a row, everything else. I mean, he could have had a very smart group of MPs hungry to help the public, hungry to do well, hungry to strive and drive the country after the sinking ship, again, to extend the metaphor of the Conservative government. But he hasn't. And 11 people have left his government since he came into power last June or July in 2024. 11. That's more than any other Prime Minister has faced in modern history. That again tells you something about his leadership, which I don't think is legitimate. I don't think he has the authenticity, I don't think he has the clarity, and I certainly do not think from the get-go he's actually had the leadership to lead and drive this country forward. There is no growth. Rachel Reeves, at the moment, when she launches that budget on the 26th of November of this year...
Which is as late as possible. It's a bit like when you go to school and you say to the teacher, can I hand my homework in on Friday, please, because it's not quite ready.
Exactly. She does not know what she's doing. She's not fit for purpose. She can't add up, Mark. As I've said before, she'll never get a job in Greggs, let alone a job in the Treasury. And I'm surprised that she's still there, which also begs the question, does Starmer know her days are numbered? And does Starmer think the optic of getting rid of her at this time would have just been far too much for the public to take? And bear in mind, it was you guys that voted them in.
Also, a question I've got for you is this reshuffle.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to say in my Dolan dispatch, my first Dolan dispatch.
At 9 a.m. this morning?
9 a.m. Don't mess around. Stop what you're doing. My first Dolan dispatch since I've returned to talk, and I'm so happy to be back, and thank you folks for having me, is this question, which is, it demonstrates, I think, the reshuffle, the lack of talent within Starmer's, team.
Yeah.
And the eviction of Yvette Cooper from the Home Office and the eviction of David Lammy from the Foreign Office, does that suggest that Starmer thinks they were failing in those posts?
I think it does. I think it hugely does.
Because if she was a killer Home Secretary, she'd still stay in post, wouldn't she?
But he was smashing the gangs, wasn't he? When he first came in, Starmer. Let's smash the gangs. Let's smash the gangs. And she was in charge of smashing said gangs. She hasn't smashed anything. What she's been doing is smashing avocados up in Islington or wherever it is she resides.
With her
Balls.
TV presenter husband, Ed Balls.
Yes.
Who was Gordon Brown's financial advisor, economics advisor, all those years ago. Are we being a little harsh on this government? Bottom line is that the country has problems. 14 years of Tory failure. In my view, a massive COVID overreaction, which doubled our national debt. And the highest taxes since the Second World War. So things were a right mess in July. Are we blaming Labour for the crimes of the past?
I wouldn't need to blame Labour, right, for the Conservative downfall of this country and what they pushed us into. That's a global thing. I mean, that's happening globally, not just in this country. What I do put the blame squarely at the feet of this Labour administration is the fact that they have got no clue, Mark. It's as basic as that. They've got no clue for growth, economic growth in the country. Reeves put on type 2 national insurance contributions for employers. That's crippled SMEs up and down this country.
Yeah.
It's forbid the growth of these companies because they just can't afford it. Right? And no one seems to bat an eyelid at that.
And
Angela
let's not
Rayner,
forget Angela Rayner's red tape.
and the employment laws that she brought in.
You're ahead of me.
And I'm sorry, that's not to protect Joe Bloggs or us, the working people that Starmer kept referring to. It's actually to punish employers. Do you know that any young person or any person going for a job now, if they're lucky to actually get one, because we know the graduate market is completely saturated and there's a lot less jobs for them that are saddled with debt that need to pay that debt off. There's no high-powered graduate jobs for them to go into or training schemes. So therefore it's the usual zero-hour contracts, and employers have to take someone that they don't know a past that they have, they don't know what medical issues they might present with, and they don't know anything about them to see if they're actually good, diligent workers. They don't interview face to face either. It's all done online. You cannot get the best person for the job unless you sit down with someone, open them up, read them like a book, and see how they will react in a job setting. It's ridiculous.
Christina is in Spain. Mark, our Ange is not the next Boris. She's the next Peter Mandelson. He kept bouncing back. Sharon, good morning to you. Cooper and Lammy, what a bloody useless choice. Could he not get better than that? Well, I think that's what I'll be mentioning at 9 o'clock, Sharon, is the sheer lack of talent within this, not shadow cabinet, previously shadow cabinet, now cabinet, and within Starmer's ranks. The talent is not there. I'm delighted to say Claire Muldoon, the brilliant broadcaster and journalist, is with me for the hour, which is a fabulous booking for us. And she's back in a moment to answer a simple question. And please help me out with this on the text and on the phones, 0344 499 1000. I'm happy to take an early call. And don't mind if you're staggering back from a nightclub, because a bit like MG and JK, we might get some truth bombs. You know what they say? In vino veritas. Google that if you like. But listen, what I want to ask you is a very simple question next, which is Angela Rayner the Labour Party's Boris Johnson, by which I mean a charismatic figure that's going to lick her wounds and make an assault on the leadership in a year or two's time? We'll discuss that next.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Mark Dolan with you on Weekend Breakfast for today and tomorrow. So excited to be here. And what really matters to me is your views. So let's hear from Richard in Corby on one of those clever 21st century voice notes. Dave, take it away.
I can't believe this hapless government. He's moved the deck chairs round on the Titanic, but he hasn't sacked the three worst ministers he's got. Reeves, Hermer and Miliband. They're still in position. Nothing will change. It'll just get worse.
Well said, Richard. Miliband in particular, who's going to cost this country billions as a result of their crazy commitment to net zero, whilst America, China, Russia, Brazil and India burn fossil fuels for fun. I'm delighted to say with me in the studio for the hour is the brilliant broadcaster and journalist Claire Muldoon. Claire, Angela Rayner, love her or hate her, she is a political talent like Boris Johnson. She's the Heineken politician that reaches the parts others don't. The left love her because she's a pretend socialist sort of thing, like, you know, working class, which I don't find her very working class, by the way. She's a property magnate and enjoys the luxuries of life. So she's
the epitome of social mobility. OK, that's what she is.
That's polite.
And I don't want to label anyone through class systems, because that, to me, is inherently... It's just not inherently good, is it? It's
regressive,
really?
Isn't it?
But I want to read out Sir Laura Magnus's findings, actually, because I think this is really important. People seem to think she still hasn't done anything wrong, but she did break a ministerial code, which was found out. He says, I believe Ms Rayner has acted with integrity and with a dedicated and exemplary commitment to public service.
Do me a favour.
I consider, however, that her unfortunate failure to settle her SDLT liability at the correct level, coupled with the fact that this was established only following intensive public scrutiny, leads me to advise you that, in relation to this matter, she cannot be considered to have met the, quote, highest possible standards of proper conduct, unquote, as envisaged by the Code. Accordingly, it is with deep regret that I must advise you that in these circumstances, I consider the Code to have been breached. That then gave her the framework in order to write her letter of resignation. The question I have, though, would Starmer have had the guts to actually sack her?
Yeah.
And what is the difference? What's the very fine line between her resigning, Mark, and him not sacking her?
Well, that's the paradox of Starmer, because he's got this massive majority, and yet I can't remember a weaker Prime Minister. Probably the weakest Prime Minister we've had since Starmer would have been Theresa May, but that was because she had a wafer-thin majority. She had a working majority thanks to the support of the DUP, and my studies from university of a politics degree will tell you that even Winston Churchill can't be a strong Prime Minister without a majority. Every Prime Minister... Yeah. Starmer's got that.
He has.
And he's still weak.
Yes.
Why?
I don't, because he's not a leader. That's why, Mark. He's not a leader. How many times has he flip-flopped and U-turned in his administration since he became
PM?
To
be fair to Starmer for a nanosecond, is it also, Claire, because his party is ungovernable, very split? I mean, a good chunk of them, a quarter to a third, could go off to Jeremy Corbyn's new party.
They might. They might. But as you've said as well, is Rayner the boomerang? Is she the Boris Johnson? But I would say that cross-party, this is what the problem that we have. There are no credible, authentic MPs left in this country. We're being governed by career politicians. Yeah. They don't know their left hand from their right hand. They've been, and I use that term politically as well, they're completely confused, and they're being airlifted into safe seats, the ones that the leaders think are, you know, super troopers. And it's been
Party
mooted.
loyalists.
Party loyalists, they will get the safe seat. And it's actually been mooted last week by Richard Tice that Angela Rayner bought that apartment in Brighton and Hove because it was, he mentioned a chicken run to a safe seat for her to be elected again. And maybe, who knows, maybe that is the answer. But you've got Douglas Alexander that's been placed now up in Scotland. Yeah. The last chap was kept there because he actually was the only Labour MP to keep his seat against the SNP cuckold, and now he's been made removed, and Douglas Alexander is now in for Labour in Scotland as the head of Scotland and Trade. It's just the whole thing. I just want to raise my hands up in the air, throw a lot of paper, voice a lot of expletives, and walk away and hope that the next day is going to be better, knowing that it's not. It's a bit like Schrodinger's cat. You know, it's in the box. Is it dead or is it alive? It's still a cat.
Yeah, too right. And a quite shocking headline in today's Telegraph. I'll go through all of the papers after 6:30. I've got them here. But this online, the Telegraph are saying, Claire Muldoon, Angela Rayner may have to sell her controversial Hove flat after losing her job because, of course, her salary will drop. So Angela Rayner says Madeline Ross, their money reporter, that Angela Rayner could struggle to afford the mortgage on her £800,000 holiday home after having her salary heavily reduced following her resignation from government office. Rayner also faces a hefty tax bill and possible carelessness penalty of more than £50,000 for failing to pay the correct stamp duty on the purchase of that flat that sparked.
We don't need to worry about that. We don't need to worry about that because I'll tell you, I'm a celebrity, get me out of here. Strictly are all on the phone vying for Angela Rayner to be on their show. It's true. She'll be fine.
So I'm a Celebrity, the book deal.
Yeah.
And maybe, who knows, Christmas #1.
110 days to Christmas.
She's got her. Are you serious?
Yeah.
My goodness, you've broken the golden rule of broadcasting, which is to mention Christmas in the early. Is it the early autumn? Are we in early autumn already?
We're in autumn, I'd say.
There you go. Well, listen, lots of messages coming in. I want to get back to Rayner if she's got her eye on the leadership. But how about this from Bill in Thailand? Because don't forget, the talk is all about the UK, but we are global, and we're on YouTube, and we're available in-app, and we're online, and we're on the radio. But Bill's in Thailand, which is a lovely, lovely part of the world. Bill says, good morning, Mark. Will Starmer have a big problem when Conference says they want to elect a new deputy leader of the Labour Party? It's a brilliant point. How about this from Sharon in Staffordshire? Top of the morning, Sharon. Sharon says, good morning, Mark. Good to see you on talkTV this morning. And it's always a pleasure to see Claire. Oh. Do you want my honest opinion? Good riddance to that awful Rayner, and the rest of the Labour government needs to go. We need a snap election now so that reform can win and get this country into order. Thank you so much for that. And Mick says, Mark, the Tory party is toast. Even God can't change the past. Well, that's definitely true, Mick. We'll get to the Tories a little later in the hour. Don't forget the papers are coming at exactly 6:30. But returning to Rayner, she may now have immediate financial problems. But although Starmer did not have the cojones to sack her, and he definitely should have, but he didn't, she will regroup. She's got big support within the party.
And the unions.
And the unions. And the thing where she's smart is that she's got a foot in two camps, I'd say, because the left like her because she's a faux socialist. I don't think she actually really is. And you mentioned about class labels. I don't think she can call herself an ordinary working class woman anymore. She's not woman of the people, is she? With her expensive Apple headphones and her posh holidays.
Mark, come on. Let's not bring that into it. We need to judge her on her political acumen. And we need to judge...
I feel that I know there's a few people that feel betrayed by Angela Rayner and are sickened by her claim to be working class. That they feel that she trades on that but doesn't deserve to.
Well, that's completely subjective, isn't it? We need to judge her on what's happened. And she wasn't truthful. She wasn't authentic. She lacked clarity. But there is still a lot of left-leaning MPs within the Labour Party and a lot of left-leaning voters in the Labour Party who still like Angela Rayner, regardless of what.
And you talked about, quite rightly, you pointed out what a absolute personality bypass Keir Starmer has had, and no plan for government. You can't say that about Rayner. Well, you can say no plan for government, but you can't say she doesn't have a personality.
No, she does.
Charisma.
Remember Ginger Growler?
Too right.
I mean, I'm sorry at this time in the morning to even have reminded your viewers and listeners about that, but she's been
even the
through
scum comment was reprehensible, but it got people talking, and it still rallied the troops.
Yes, it did, and that's what she does. That's what she does.
So has she got her eye on the leadership in a year or two's time?
She may very well have, but she will have the support. If she wants it, she will have the support to get it. Meanwhile, general election, when are we calling that? 2027? Or indeed sooner? Next year, perhaps?
Well, Nigel Farage thinks that there could be an election in 2027. The reason being that the left of the Parliamentary Labour Party split and go over to Corbyn, which would spark potentially a general election if Keir Starmer is not able to get his legislation through Parliament, because that majority could swiftly disappear, which would be quite extraordinary.
Isn't it wonderful that this country still has first past the post, right, in order to tease out all these things, and also the way the parties are made up. You know, how they get rid of their leaders is completely Labour and Conservative, completely different. Yeah. You need a majority. You need to get letters to Graham Brady or whoever his name is now in the Conservative, who got so much mail in the last 14 years. He must still be reading it. Correct. With all the leaders that have gone through that party. And then the Labour government, the Labour Party is mixed by trade unions, by party members, by their own government, by their own, plus the constituency MPs. So strange.
It is. The whole thing is strange.
And it's all numbers.
Turbulent
and it's all...
times. And I think it's got to be the first Prime Minister in history that's had a large majority who is irredeemably weak and in trouble. Make it make sense. I mean, that was the point about Margaret Thatcher. She was actually, between elections, quite often unpopular because she did tough things that the country needed. And even her backbenchers were grumbling. She waged a war on her backbenchers with a simple question in her inner circle, which is, are they one of us?
Yeah.
And that was about her own party. Can we trust this MP or that MP? Are they one of us? And she didn't mind because she had the majority and she had some character and backbone. But listen, folks, I'm going to get to more of your comments very shortly. But next up, we've got tomorrow's front pages.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
You're listening to Talk, the home of common sense. Mark Dolan with you for the next 3.5 hours. We've got John Redwood, Tory grandee, at 7:45. It's going to be what they would call a flagpole interview, and I'll be asking him a simple question: are the Tories dead? John Redwood, a proper Conservative, does he need to move to reform? But first, tomorrow's papers, but it's actually today, if you know what I mean. So thank you, Claire Muldoon, for pointing it out, that it is actually now Saturday morning, and it's great to have your company. The Sun newspaper. Let's start with the two best newspapers in the UK, which are the Times and the Sun. I don't know why I've said that. It's just a feeling I have. Is that the Times and the Sun?
Oh, Mark. We
the
all
best papers.
know why you said that. Where are they published? Where are we now?
No, it's because they've got the best journalists, right? My three favourite papers are the Times, the Sun, and the Times Literary Supplement, and Virgin Radio. Okay, so here we go. The Sun, bloodbath as 3 pads cut adrift. They're calling her 3 pads, which is hilarious. Sunk is the headline. Rayner quits over tax dodge. Purge as PM rips up cabinet. Starmer bid to reset ailing government, as Claire Muldoon points out. That's, I think, the 3rd or 4th reset. More comebacks than trying to think of sort of pops. Dirty Den. There you go. Thank you, Ryan, for being my brain there. Yeah, more comebacks than Dirty Den. Good old Leslie Grantham. Met him once. A very quiet, intelligent and humble man. Sadly missed. Right, so sunk is the headline. Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner was forced out of cabinet yesterday, triggering a bloodbath reshuffle as Sir Keir Starmer fought to keep his government afloat. The Housing Minister and Deputy PM was sunk by the ethics watchdog's bombshell verdict that she had breached the rules over £40,000 of unpaid stamp duty. Before I get to the other front pages, can I just ask you, Claire Muldoon, that letter written by the ethics watchdog, did it not strike you as a little too poetic and sort of Shakespearean about her amazing contribution? And I think she should have just had it should have been a terse statement saying, you broke the rules, you're out. Why did it need all the flour and honey?
That's what the rest of us would have got.
Yeah.
Right.
Why did it need the flour and honey?
Well, I think it's because people might feel sorry for her. People want to...
Do me a favour.
This is why I think Sir Laurie Magnus but maybe as well it is to get the shine off of her now. You know, she made it in her resignation letter. She said that she went into public life as a public servant to serve the country. Her children and her family didn't. And she found that the optic now, the focus was now on them, which wasn't fair because they never asked for that. And I think in Laurie Magnus's statement here, I think what he's trying to say to the media is back off. She ain't that bad.
There you go. The Times on Saturday, the great Rayner reshuffle, Deputy PM's resignation over tax affairs, kick-starts overhaul. Half of cabinet change jobs as Starmer tries to revive the party. The sad passing of the Duchess of Kent, really, really sad news. A very graceful and dignified lady, and she lived a great and long life. Very beautiful woman, I think you'll agree. Very glamorous.
Very beautiful.
And 1933 to 2025, so that's a great loss to the royal family, and may she rest in peace.
She was also the only convert to Roman Catholicism in the royal family.
There you go. That's worthy of note. We also have quite an interesting story. I don't normally go for the feature stories when you do a newspaper review, but I think this one is noteworthy. Lulu is 76. She looks amazing. I'm an alcoholic. I'm in recovery. So quite a big story there. It surprises me because if you look at her, she looks like her body's a temple, doesn't she?
Absolutely.
She's ages. Where are you from in Scotland?
Almost close to where she's from. Glasgow, yeah.
And tell me, I mean, I think she's an incredible musical talent and singer. But how much of an icon is she in Scotland?
Well, it's difficult to say because she does this switch to her broad Glaswegian accent, just like that, sounding more like Janie Godley and Nicola Sturgeon. And then she goes on to, when she's on English TV, she produces almost like RP, but she's an incredible talent. There's no doubt about it. She was 16 or something like that when she won Stars in Your Eyes, or was it Eurovision? And she's had quite a checkered past, but I read that headline and thought, gosh, if that's what being an alcoholic makes you look like, then talk about the Vino Verde. Well, you just have to wonder.
You most definitely. She's a great
Vino
character.
Veritas is what you said. Vino Verde, obviously, is the green wine from Portugal.
There you go. Which it's never too
wine
early
of
to
truth.
start, is it? Listen, drink responsibly.
yes.
You're welcome to have a drink with the show. I mean, it's the
might
breakfast
make
show.
it go quicker.
Well, it's exactly right, and you edit out the nonsense that I waffle on about.
People think this is water.
Well, this is it. Most of you will be brewing a big cup of tea because it is the breakfast show. And what we're going to do today, and we're going to do tomorrow, is get you ready for a big weekend. So whether you're working or planning on having some fun, then we are your companions.
Do you think Starmer is? What do you think Starmer's doing at the moment? What do you think his breakfast will be at number 10?
Well, I
Burnt
think
toast.
I think so. Humble pie.
Oh, never that.
Never.
Never that.
Sadly. Yeah, well, he's in probably quite a dark place.
But what a start to Parliament this year. You know, I expected Black Rod to have something more like standard than Black Rod when the King opens Parliament officially. But what a start. I mean, even this has eclipsed the Reform Party conference in Birmingham, right? It's taken a lot of light away from there. And we've got this complete omnishambles of a Labour government, and we just don't know what on earth is happening.
And
it's
we've
shocking,
got, in principle, on paper, we've got another 4 years of it.
And we've got Ledbetter's other bill coming back up, assisted dying, and the abortion bill. It's just, talk about killing off.
There's so much. I mean, you could just do the next 2.5 hours on it. You've also got the Online Safety Act, which has been completely hijacked by censors and people that essentially want to kill our free speech, about which the Americans are laughing at us and lecturing us. The Daily Telegraph, exit Rayner. Now Starmer takes the fight to reform. Telegraph disclosures force Deputy Prime Minister to quit over tax dodge. Mahmood and McFadden to lead PM's battle on small boats and welfare. And pro-Gaza left-winger signals trouble ahead as she enters race for deputy leader. Here's a question for you. Will Starmer shift right now? There's a suggestion that he's appointed Shabana Mahmood as Home Secretary as a British woman of colour, an ethnic minority and a Muslim who can do the painful policies to tackle illegal immigration that perhaps somebody that didn't have her ethnic background couldn't. Is that a worthy interpretation, do you think?
I would far rather, instead of all of that, I would far rather she was given the job because she would be good at it.
Don't be silly, Claire.
Well, you know...
You're so naive.
Am I really? Am I
going to have to sit you down and explain politics to you, especially this government?
I think you might.
Meritocracy.
Well, you know...
But I do wonder whether, I mean, does, you know, because our viewers and listeners, I think that a good majority want the illegal boat crossings to stop, right? My viewers and listeners have empathy for people that are fleeing terror and persecution. Most of my viewers and listeners believe that a certain sensible amount of immigration is perfectly fine and always was. It's about the volume, it's about the numbers, and it's about the illegal routes. So what if Starmer addresses that head on and has a candidate, has somebody in the Home Office who's going to be able to do that without being called racist?
Well, you listeners and viewers also have the authenticity to realise that, you know, people should get jobs on their ability to do the job, and also they do not want ID cards being brought in either.
No way.
And they know that it will not work, because when are you supposed to issue them? If you're issuing these ID cards as people come off the boat, why aren't you processing them then when they're coming off the boat?
Pat McFadden, by the way, who is he's a very skillful operator.
He's been mooted as being the next Chancellor of the Exchequer.
Wow. I know the guy. He's a real gentleman.
Yeah. Scottish.
I don't. Well, there you go. That's half the battle. I don't agree with a lot of his politics, but he's shrewd. He's intelligent. He's got a degree of integrity as well. I like him. I'm fond of him as a person. And by the way, it's important to remember that these politicians are human beings too.
Really, are they?
Who knew?
You're trying to tell me Keir Starmer is actually human?
Well,
I've been saying he's a machine, a robot, since he got elected. And don't get me started on the Aardvark Miliband.
Oh, well, we need to devote a chunk of the show to Miliband, because mysteriously he's survived.
Still there.
Yeah,
and
as Energy
quiet.
Secretary. It's a real worry. But Pat McFadden is going to be in charge of welfare. Is he going to be able to execute the spending cuts that his predecessor was unable to?
He will, because he has respect. And he doesn't have... I mean, we've all got skeletons in our cupboards, and we've all, you know...
Have we,
got a past? Well,
I don't.
Oh, stop it. Are you a paradigm of virtue?
I'm as clean as the driven snow.
Have you seen the snow that falls? It's not that white anymore.
Mrs. Dolan will tell you I'm an absolute angel. Right. So that's going to be an interesting one to see how that develops, which is... Because the elephant in the room regarding the economy is that...
We don't have any money.
We live beyond our means. We don't. And... Yes, there's all this talk about, you know, the different sort of taxes you can have, etc. And then, of course, there's the growth, which is non-existent. But the only...
Which they're not even trying to bellow air into.
No.
I mean, I fear for this country. And the Industrial Revolution got away with machines, right?
Yeah.
We've got AI that's now being brought in, and it's going to go away with people, do away with people. We've got no plan, Mark. There is no plan. There is no bellow of air being pumped into the fire of entrepreneurship, the fire of Britain's heartbeat. You know, there's nothing. There's no hope.
Now, Nigel Farage, of course, is hosting the Reform UK conference this weekend, and we're going to have a big focus on that this morning. We've got two massive stories. We've been gifted with two big stories, the departure of Angela Rayner and the reshuffle, and the Reform conference, which is so important and so significant, because if there was an election tomorrow, based on the polling, then Nigel Farage is going to be Britain's Prime Minister. I think that gap is going to widen, and I think this guy will have a landslide in a few years' time. But let's have a listen to his reaction to the departure of Angela Rayner.
But you simply can't get away, can you, from being the Housing Secretary and avoiding £40,000 of council tax. And it screams to entitlement. It screams to a government that, despite all the promises that this would be a new, different kind of politics, is as bad, if not worse, than the one that went before. We've been told that right now the Prime Minister is organising a reshuffle, yet another reset, and that the names of the new cabinet will come out later on this afternoon. Well, I didn't want the Prime Minister to do anything to spoil our conference, and that's why I've come on the stage now to say they are not fit to govern.
Powerful words from Nigel Farage. Next up, more front pages and a simple question. Do you feel sorry for Angela Rayner?
Two people in those really important jobs Keir Starmer's identified. The first is Shabana Mahmood, who I've mentioned before, and then Pat McFadden, the government's utility player, taking on the Department for Work and Pensions. He's basically been told, you've got to fix the labour market, you've got to get people back into work.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
More front pages to come, but we've got a new Home Secretary in Shabana Mahmood. Will she introduce ID cards, and would that be acceptable to you? 03444991000. Tony is in Southampton. Hello, Tony.
Hello.
Thank you for your call. How is your Saturday morning going, Tony?
Oh, fine. I'm trying to rewire some lights.
You're trying to rewire lights?
Yeah, I've got the other half out of the house, so I'm trying to do the wiring while there's no one else in the house.
Right, now, how did you get the other half out of the house this early in the day?
No, we set her off to Yorkshire for a girly weekend.
You're a clever man. So you got the house yourself, which is good, and you're going to sort out the electrics. It's in the kitchen, bathroom? Where are you rewiring your lights?
All the upstairs. It's a 1960s house with all those problems.
Tony, do you have the qualifications to do this?
Yes.
I mean, are you Corgi registered? What do you want to send me?
No. I did 30 odd years as a telephone engineer, but I'm not actually an electrician. But I'm not doing kitchen and bathroom.
Well, your lady is very lucky to have a man like you in the house with the rewiring and all that. Well, look, good luck with that. Please don't electrocute yourself. I've got a life hack, by the way, which is if I do something with a plug, I put on the rubber gloves. Will that save me?
Well, I'd rather you turned it off at the meter first.
That's for wimps. Yeah. Tony, ID cards. We may get ID cards from our new Home Secretary. Would they be acceptable?
No. This is where you're wrong, and all the other press are wrong too. It's not digital ID cards; it's digital ID on your phone.
Digital ID on your phone. Well, of course, because that's how the technology has progressed, and it will be sold to us, Tony, as a way of ending illegal immigration, which hasn't worked in France.
Right. So they've already given digital ID to the new migrants. If you used to get a biometric card, now you get a digital ID, right, and a phone.
See, I didn't know that.
No.
Illegal immigrants they generate a digital ID and they're given a smartphone or a cell phone.
And then even a legitimate immigrant, like a partner coming in with their spouse, gets a digital ID.
So essentially, what you're telling me is that it's already begun, in fact.
It's already begun. But the problem here is the government put an app on your phone, and then they can do what they did with COVID, proximity with Bluetooth with other people. And then they can... So if I go to school every day and pick up child or grandchild, I can talk away to John at the gates, and he could be bank robber John. I then get associated with bank robber John.
Yeah.
And that's the problem, is I don't mind having a new ID card to open bank accounts, rent houses and things like that. My wife would be quite beneficial with that because she doesn't drive and she doesn't fly, right?
Yeah.
So she has trouble getting ID and keeping ID to do stuff with the solicitor and things like that. But the problem with the digital ID is, A, you need to have a phone or a computer, and a lot of people aren't computer literate. So, there's plenty of... I'm looking out...
Millions of people will be frozen out of this.
Exactly. So, A, people will be frozen out. B, if I then go around and meet with people who are slightly shadier, then I will be associated with all those drug dealers and bank robbers and criminals just because my Bluetooth was in contact with their Bluetooth.
And you're essentially being tracked by the state. The state is stalking you.
The state is stalking you everywhere you go.
Yeah.
And it's not that I have a problem having a new ID card. And I like one card that replaces everything. So I can, scan it in Tesco's. It's got a barcode, and I'd have a QR code to do slightly more serious stuff, and then a chip and pin with a 4-digit to draw some money out, and then a 10-digit to do something more complicated, like go to a solicitor's or rent a house. But I don't want it on my phone.
Yeah, and you're right, because of the GPS nature of a smartphone, takes the ID into a very, very dark place. Tony, listen, it's been so great to take your call. First call of the day, and a very fine call it was. Good luck with those electrics, because it's very hazardous if you're listening at home. Do be careful if you start rewiring things. Tony there, very concerned about the suggestion that our new Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, Claire Muldoon, might introduce some kind of ID card, and it will be sold as a fix for illegal immigration.
Well, it's not. It won't be. And I'm surprised to hear from Tony, actually, that it's actually being used at the moment, because if you speak to anyone in Border Force that has people coming through the gates that they suspect are coming illegally, all they have to say is, I'm seeking asylum here, and then that triggers them to be processed, I use that term lightly, not by any digital form of ID, because if it were the case, when they went out into the physical ether and the ether, they would be able to be found again, which they're not. And that's the other issue. So I am completely against ID cards, whether it be physical or virtual on phones. I don't have the flood alerts on. I've switched that off. I don't have my Bluetooth on unless I've got my buds in. And it's, you know, it's just, it scrambles with me. And it scrambles with me that the information that they will get, that they will glean, purchasing power, purchasing propensity, where I go, what I do, it's not right. It's not right at all. It's completely authoritarian. It goes against anything. It goes against liberty. It goes against the freedom to move where you want to go to, move with people that you want to go with. It's just ridiculous, and it's bad enough. We've got ANPR that can recognise number plates, and if any one of your viewers or your listeners who drives, they get a parking ticket or they get a ticket for taking a wrong turn, they're blooming well quick to get you, aren't they? They're blooming well quick to get the letter through your letterbox.
There's no discretion and no judgment.
No discretion, no nothing at all, and it's not fair. And I fear that with ID cards, it's going to be even less.
Daily Express, they are not fit to govern. Reform leader Nigel Farage vows his party can win an election in 2 years' time as Angela Rayner resignation plunges the government into chaos. And Kate and William's tribute to much missed Duchess of Kent after her sad passing. The Eye weekend, Rayner loses her job as PM tells Mahmood to stop boat migrants. Daily Mirror now, as Rayner quits in 40k tax row. Stamp duty hypocrite luxury house Farage boasted of buying was purchased by his partner, slashing the tax paid by 44k. And The Guardian, PM battles to contain crisis after Rayner forced to resign. Now, The Guardian, which is, of course, left-leaning, which is an understatement, has a photo of a very brooding-looking Angela Rayner, very defiant. Is there a risk now? And she wasn't fired by Starmer, but she's lost her job. Is she a martyr of the left? And will that help her in the years ahead?
No, she's not a martyr. No, I don't believe that.
Could she be sold as that to the Labour Parliamentary Party, who may well choose her as the next leader?
Well, when you mentioned why the statement from the lawyer who went through her papers, you said it was very flowery, and I said, well, the rest of us wouldn't have got anything like that. Yeah, you did wrong. That's it, end of. I think this is part of the process. I think this is part of her journey. I think this is part of the Labour Party looking after someone that they feel has helped the party enormously. And that's where the detail will be in the future.
Fascinating stuff. We've got more front pages. The Daily Star, government meltdown reigns over. Deputy PM 3 pads Ange quits over tax breach. Cabinet reshuffle purge amid Labour front bench mayhem. And FT weekend, Starmer upends his cabinet after Rayner resigns over tax scandal. Before we go, Claire, it is the Reform UK conference this weekend, and Nigel Farage spoke yesterday. We're going to do a deep dive. We're going to speak to some big names from Reform in the next couple of hours. I mean, this is a project with momentum, isn't it?
Momentum. I see what you
pun
did
intended.
there.
But I mean, I don't see what's going to stop them now. I mean, things are only going to get worse for the economy. Starmer will not stop the boats or smash the gates. You're just going to see more and more problems in our society, more division, more anger. Starmer's toast. So what about Nigel Farage? What does his message need to be this weekend?
His message has to be, instead of blaming, which, I mean, Nigel Farage is a great orator, there's no doubt about it. He's a great politician, absolutely. But I just don't think there's enough behind reform to push them to win a general election in terms of what they will do. It's all very well having the bluster to point the finger. Well, you haven't done this, you haven't done that. We can all see the checklist that the past 14 years of Conservative government didn't do. We can see, and we're living painfully through what Labour are inept at doing. They're not even trying, in my view. But what does reform offer? What does reform offer? Does it offer reform with a small r as well? Personally, I don't think Nigel Farage actually wants to be PM. I think he's loving this whole roller coaster. And don't forget, we've got Trump coming over in a couple of weeks as well. No paper's been covering that because he's gone AWOL. We don't know where he is. And he's got the state visit coming up. So I don't know if Starmer's actually going to look forward to that. I know he will be, Farage, and he'll be wanting to see him. David Lammy, that's why I think he was shifted to the Justice Secretary. So he would actually still have some connection when Trump comes over with JD Vance, to have some hold with and some opportunities, photo opportunities and dialogue with the Americans, because we need them.
Listen, we needed you because that was a brilliant first hour. Thank you so much for your commentary, your truth bombs, your wisdom. The brilliant Claire Muldoon, who will return to this network imminently, and so much love for you on the text, by the way. Big fans out there for Claire Muldoon. Well, we've got a massive 3 hours to come. It's Mark Dolan on the home of Common Sense Talk, and in the next hour, are Reform now odds on to win the next election? We'll speak to a top pollster. And Tory grandee, Sir John Redwood. Don't go anywhere.
How much, ladies and gentlemen, are fish and chips where you come from? We'll go to Jason in Crewe.
Jason from Crewe, fish, chips and peas, £7.50. It's the best chippy in England.
Janice in Leeds, go.
Regarding fish and chips, in Leeds it's between £9.50 and £12.75.
Whitby, how much is fish and chips?
3 of us, fish, chips, peas, I think one of us curry sauce, 3 cans of pop, just short of 70 quid.
£70? That's 23 quid a head, man. Even my maths does that. Very quickly, a voice note. Campbell in Scotland, go.
Up here in Banff in the northeast of Scotland, we can get a fillet and a half of haddock with a regular chips for £8 and 10 pence, and it's by far and away one of the best chippies I've ever had.
Kenneth in Surrey, fish and chips, go.
Fish and chips in Ascot, about half a mile from where you used to live, will cost you £12.60. Great show. Keep up the good work.
That's why I moved, because you were living there. When was the last time you had fish and chips?
Couple of weeks ago.
How much? Where'd you get it from?
I think it was about 40 quid. It was in the Ivy.
Honestly, you really are. For any of you who think he's a man of the people, I nearly said you're a...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
I'm Mark Dolan. This is Talk, the home of common sense, with you for the next 3 hours, with you all weekend. What a thrill to be back. And speaking of back, the monologue is back at 9 a.m. My first Dolan dispatch since my return to talk. I'll be dropping some truth bombs. I won't be pulling my punches. I may well get in trouble. Good. That's my daily dispatch at 9 o'clock, and I'll be tackling, as I will for the rest of the show, two of the biggest political stories of the year. The Deputy Prime Minister and one of the highest profile politicians in the country, Angela Rayner, has stood down in a row over unpaid stamp duty. Rayner's out and Reeves is under pressure. Is this the beginning of the end for the Starmer project? And here's a question for you. Is Angela Rayner the Labour Party's Boris Johnson? Will she regroup now, waiting in the wings to take control of the party before the next election? She's not going away quietly, is she, Rayner? She is not going away quietly. The backbenchers love her, the left love her. A major threat now to Starmer. Has she become a martyr already? 03444991000. She'll make merry hell. There's no love lost between her and the Prime Minister, and revenge is a dish best served cold. And what about that reshuffle? David Lammy, mastermind himself, the man who thinks you can grow a cervix. He's the Deputy Prime Minister. Is this the man you want in charge if Starmer falls? Reminds me of when Manuel took over Fawlty Towers for a couple of minutes, when Basil Fawlty was on holiday. Take Manuel over. This outrageous new Deputy Prime Minister, David Lammy. Also, our new Home Secretary goes on pro-Palestine marches. Is this Britain's first anti-Israel Home Secretary? And as Starmer's government crumbles, the opposition parties smell blood with the small matter of one Nigel Farage, who's raging ahead in the polls, hosting his party's conference this weekend. Is Farage the answer to Britain's problems? We'll be speaking to the biggest names in the party this morning. The Reform Conference is huge. Why? Well, because if you believe the polling, they will be our next government, and Nigel Farage will be our next Prime Minister. This is not a drill. So on my watch, all that matters is your opinion. And the best bit of the show is when we speak via text, via voice note, and also when you call 0344 499 1000. The switchboard is filling up. Book your space on the show. We've got some big names coming up, including a couple of big stars from Talk Radio. We're going to try and get Mike Graham and Jeremy Kyle on the show, if they've sobered up yet. Because the thing is, you know, as a journalist, you don't get the inside story unless you go to the bar. That's where you've... And if you don't have a drink, you see, they don't trust you. That's why. Just being professional. And here's a big, big question for this hour. Are the Tories dead? I'll be asking Tory grandee, none other than Sir John Redwood, arguably the greatest leader they never had. Sir John Redwood, live at 7:45 a.m. Don't forget the Dolan Dispatch coming at 9. That's spicy, let me tell you. I'll get in trouble. Good. Well, speaking of trouble, of course, Keir Starmer faces multiple headwinds, not just from opposition parties and particularly Nigel Farage, but from his own backbenchers. Let's get reaction to what has been a tumultuous 24 hours for the PM in the company of one of my favourite political commentators, the brilliant Theo Usherwood. Theo, you were hoping for a quiet weekend. Good luck with that.
It's not going to transpire, is it? Very good morning, and great to see you on Talk this morning, Mark. Look, Angela Rayner, she had to go. There was no two ways about it, and especially when we saw those comments from the firm of solicitors yesterday morning, that actually they'd done, their insistence that they'd done nothing wrong, that they had never been asked to provide advice on tax and trust law, and therefore they'd made a referral for Angela Rayner to get advice from the relevant experts in this field. It was obvious that as long as that was substantiated by Sir Laurie Magnus, the Prime Minister's independent advisor on ethics, that Angela Rayner was going to have to resign. And of course, having made such a song and dance every time a Conservative minister broke the ministerial code that they would have to go, there was no choice but for Keir Starmer to let to accept Angela Rayner's resignation. She had to fall on her sword.
Most definitely. Has she been made a martyr? I know she wasn't fired, she's stepped down, but will she be deified now by those on the backbenchers who aren't happy with Sir Keir Starmer's leadership?
We already saw a bit of this as ministers within the Labour Party came out, especially those who represent more of the left of the Labour Party, came out to defend Angela Rayner before her resignation, saying that she'd been targeted because she was good at her job. That was one comment from Lucy Powell, who was until yesterday the leader of the House of Commons. And yes, there is the soft left within the Labour Party needs a standard bearer. It doesn't have one outside of, it doesn't have one to lead the charge. I can't imagine, for instance, Morgan McSweeney, if Angela Rayner leads a rebellion in the House of Commons, being able to remove the whip from Angela Rayner. I think it would be all-out civil war within the Labour Party. Keir Starmer's also going to have to. I was listening before I came on to Jack Elson, political editor of the Sun's and political editor of the Sun, his analysis on whether Keir Starmer can sidestep a deputy leadership election. I agree with him. I think the membership within the Labour Party would descend into rage if they felt that the Prime Minister was trying to avoid having somebody that they would ultimately like taking over from Angela Rayner as deputy leader of the party. So there is the events of yesterday have created this situation, Mark, where they've opened up so many rifts within the Labour Party that I think it's going to be, with everything that's coming in terms of the budget, in terms of the government trying to get to grips with small boats, this is now a party where suddenly all of these rifts have opened up with the departure of Angela Rayner. And not least, I think Angela Rayner served something of a buffer for Keir Starmer in government. He's had a difficult 14 months. He's not lived up to the expectations of many of his colleagues. And of course, those loyal to Keir Starmer might look at somebody like Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, and think that he could do a better job. But the danger of having Angela Rayner in place in the cabinet is that, of course, that if they were to remove Keir Starmer, given Angela Rayner's popularity amongst the Labour membership, it'd be more likely that she would become the Prime Minister and take over from Keir Starmer. So having her there was it created this situation, this buffer, where actually loyalists to Keir Starmer would always think, well, it's better the devil you know, even if he was falling foul. He was making a mess of it. Labour at their lowest ratings in the polls for since 2019, with Jeremy Corbyn was at his lowest ebb. That actually having her there was much better than now having her outside, being potentially a harsh critic. And we saw that letter that she wrote to Rachel Reeves, for example, that was leaked, which detailed exactly what she would do in terms of trying to fill the fiscal black hole and raising tax on the wealthiest in this country.
Yes, Angela Rayner is charismatic. She's high profile. She's a troublemaker and she's ambitious. She's not going to go away quietly.
No, she's not going to go. She's not going to go away quietly. She's also got a huge amount of support amongst the Labour membership. She's got a huge amount of support amongst the soft left of the Labour Party, and Keir Starmer if anything like the last 12 months is anything to go, 14 months is anything to go by, has not been performing well in the job of Prime Minister. He's been below expectations even of those who are closest to him, whether it be what's happened to the economy, what's happened in terms of, the number of small boats crossings actually going up, having pledged, of course, to smash the gangs. This has not been a Prime Minister who's lived up to the expectation that he had the managerial skills to get the country back on track after what he would describe as 14 years of Conservative mismanagement. At the same time, we've seen Nigel Farage at the Reform Party press conference up in Birmingham living his best life. It now seems like he's odds on, and the polls and the bookies would support this, and I know you've got some experts coming on your show in a few moments, that he is odds on to become the next Prime Minister. And actually, Angela Rayner had the quality in terms of her abilities to take on Nigel Farage. She wasn't of that certain London set. She had the credentials and the know-how and the wit to take on Mr. Farage, and many thought that actually, in terms of seeing off the threat of the reform and Mr. Farage, Angela Rayner was going to be one of the Labour Party's greatest assets. And of course, now Keir Starmer has been forced to cast her to one side, and it feels like, if we were to end up in 12 months' time, Mark, talking about the demise of the Prime Minister, the fact that he's faced a leadership challenge and lost a leadership challenge, and there's a new Prime Minister, and you want to chart it back to where did it all begin, we chart it back to this conversation this morning after the events of the last 24 hours. This feels like the beginning of the end.
Wow, what a line. Theo Usherwood, stay with us if you can. David is in Birmingham. David, your reaction to the departure of the Deputy Prime Minister, Angela Rayner.
Yes, hello, good morning, Mark. I'm just curious. Angela Rayner has committed, tax evasion, possibly fraud or, mortgage fraud or whatever. But she's lost her job as the Deputy PM. She's lost her job as the Housing Minister, and yet she still remains an MP. Now, what kind of a message does that send?
Well, I agree with you. I mean, just to interrupt you for a second, David, she would deny the suggestion of fraud, but the bottom line is, you know as well as I do, that £40,000 that should have been paid was not paid, and you're questioning why she's even still an MP under those circumstances. If you or I had supposed to be paying £40,000 and didn't, we'd be in trouble in our workplace.
We would be in trouble. We'd, possibly have to go to court and, and defend that and everything else. But I don't think it sends the right message to the people of this country that you can still remain. It almost endorses that type of behaviour for MPs.
I hear what you're saying, David. I think it certainly destroys her credibility, not just as a cabinet minister, but as you say, as a member of parliament. I mean, I'm not sure it's grounds for a by-election, but it's certainly grounds for a bit more consequence and a bit more accountability than just leaving the cabinet. As you say, you're a member of parliament. You're supposed to be a responsible citizen and representing many thousands of constituents. David, call me again soon. What a great set of points you've made there. Theo, before you go, you've really absolutely thrown a cat among the pigeons there that you just said, and you're normally very temperate in your language and in your political predictions, but that potentially this is the beginning of the end for Starmer. How do you see things playing out if Starmer can't tackle illegal immigration and get the economy growing? What would the timeline be, and how could his demise play out?
Well, I think there are also a number of dangers before then. The first is this budget on November the 26th. When I've spoken to friends who work in the square mile in the City of London, many of my friends didn't actually go into politics, they went into finance. They're predicting that there's going to have to be some sort of major, and this is something I'm also, picking up from colleagues who cover the economy beat, that there's probably going to be a major sort of ruction, because we found that the economy is in this death spiral where Rachel Reeves puts up taxes, therefore you see a contraction, you see the economy failing to deliver the economic growth that she'd banked on, and therefore she has to put up taxes again to fill another black hole. And we go round and round and round putting up taxes, and eventually the economy, the cost of government borrowing will soar. We've seen it reach a 28-year high in terms of the cost of government debt, and eventually you will end up in a situation, probably fairly soon actually, where the bond markets go, enough. The UK PLC is a basket case, and we end up having to go to the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, for a bailout. So I think that's probably the most imminent danger to this government. Then, of course, you've got the small boats crossings, where the government we're probably going to surpass 50,000 crossings by the end of this year. It would be the first time on record that the number of migrants crossing the English Channel has gone past 50,000. It could go even higher potentially, so that's another pitfall. And of course, Nigel Farage, the shark has to keep on moving forward, doesn't it? Otherwise it no longer is a threat. But Nigel Farage and Reform have to continue to make the progress that they've been making. But if you end up, and I'm just noticing on your ticker tape, Farage has opened up a 15-point gap on Labour, 35 plays 20. Now that's one poll, but if we start to see consistently Reform dominate Labour in the polls to the extent where we're into double digits leads, 35 points is actually an overall majority in the House of Commons, pretty much, given the state of play with the other parties. Then there'll be Labour MPs who are saying, well, hang on a moment, I'm just going to be out of a job. Unless we change leadership, unless we change course and get somebody else in, we're going to be out of a job. And the point I'm making is that Angela Rayner's departure makes it much easier now for somebody like Wes Streeting to come through and take over from Keir Starmer, because those who are very close to Keir Starmer can suddenly think, actually, we can have a leadership election and get somebody else in who we really rate, like Wes Streeting, with Angela Rayner on the back benches. And all the time, of course, the real solution to talking about the economy is to cut spending. But of course, with Angela Rayner on the back benches, if there was ever a small possibility that the government might be able to cut the welfare budget, that's just vanished now. It's not going to happen. The only way that Rachel Reeves is possibly going to actually just to balance the books is to put up taxes. But 40 billion is not small change down the back of the sofa. It's a lot of money, and it's going to mean a lot of pain to probably businesses and those who generate wealth in this economy, who are probably then going to choose to go elsewhere and invest in other countries other than the UK.
Theo, always a thrill to have you on the show. My thanks to the brilliant political commentator Theo Usherwood. Next up, let's have a look at those polls. Is Nigel Farage now nailed on as Britain's next Prime Minister as he hosts his party conference this weekend? We'll speak to one of the country's leading pollsters, Lord Hayward, next.
he knows how to solve the £50 billion black hole problem. He just stop feeding David Lammy and letting him fly around the world.
Come on, look, I've got somebody else for you. This is fun. Look, here we are.
Hello, chaps.
The chairman of Reform has come by.
Very nice to see you too.
How hard have we been working today?
Really well. And look, I have to just say thank you so much for everything you did. It was just so good to have you.
It was great. It was good fun.
It was really good, and you were fantastic with people, and that's the point I've been making about this party, which is it is built from the bottom up, not the top down. And you can see that, can't you? You saw the enthusiasm.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Mick has messaged the show, dear Angela will have to stay in politics because she won't be able to write books and go on the after-dinner speaking circuit. Steph says, good morning, Mark. The only thing that Rayner has in common with Boris Johnson is that they're both good at lying, but that is a trait all politicians have. And Peter in Croydon, good morning, Peter. Thank you for messaging the show. Hi, Mark. Yesterday's inaugural speech by Nadine Dorries was short but sweet and definitely hard-hitting. So any doubts about her commitment to Nigel and to reform should no more be in doubt. As for Lammy and Calamity Cooper to move to Deputy PM and Foreign Secretary, are you kidding me? Really, Rodney, he says, really, Rodney? You plonker. No idea, Keir. Peter, thank you for that. Sorry that I butchered your excellent joke at the end. Keep those messages coming and the switchboard is filling up, 0344 499 1000. Reform UK are hosting their annual conference and they are ahead in the polls. They have momentum. Is now Nigel Farage nailed on to be Britain's next Prime Minister? I'm delighted to welcome one of the country's leading and most respected pollsters, Tory peer and political analyst, Lord Hayward. Lord Hayward, welcome to Talk.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for your time. Has Nigel Farage maxed out in terms of his potential support out there in the country and his poll position, or is there more growth to come?
Not necessarily maxed out. There's no question that Reform and Nigel Farage have had a brilliant summer recess. They were showing slight signs of dipping after the May elections, but they've more than recovered. They're on the way up. And they are establishing a very large lead over the Labour Party, and the Labour Party are just ahead of the Conservatives. So they are in a very strong position at this point. But I'd remind everyone that in 2021, at the local elections, Boris Johnson swept everything before him on a vaccine bounce, and only a few months later, he was in very, very serious difficulties. Polls swing all over the place with regularity nowadays.
Most definitely, but at the moment, it looks like Reform's to lose, doesn't it?
I mean, there's no question. Reform are in an incredibly strong position at this point. But I just warn everybody about presuming that, excuse me, that things will be the same tomorrow or the day after. Yeah. Who would have thought that we would be sitting here 2 weeks ago discussing a gargantuan cabinet reshuffle and the loss of Angela Rayner?
Most definitely. What sorts of people are supporting Reform UK? Where is this poll lead coming from, Lord Hayward?
Originally, there was no question that Reform support came from former Conservatives, disenchanted Conservatives who wanted rid of the Conservatives at the general election in 2024. What is striking now is that there has, over the last few months, been a marked shift in terms of the Reform voters now coming to, the people who are coming across to Reform were formerly Labour voters. One of the other complications, which I'd warn everybody about, is that a lot of the people who are saying they support Reform are actually people who have historically not voted. And one of the difficulties that pollsters are having at the moment is being clear whether people who haven't previously voted will suddenly start voting. If they do, they're likely to go to reform, but this is a big quandary and pollsters haven't worked that out yet.
There have been previous Conservative victories at the ballot box that weren't predicted as a result of the so-called shy Tory voters, people that are planning to vote Conservative but won't admit it to a 21-year-old graduate in a hoodie on the street. Are there any shy Reform UK voters out there?
I was the person who did the research which gave rise to the term shy Tories.
Wow.
I did the analysis, and the pollsters set about explaining why they made an error. Bob Worcester it was, who actually said, well, of course, Robert Hayward got it right, but we were interviewing people who were shy Tories. And that's where the phrase came from in 1992. Wow. Are there shy reform? No, it's exact opposite. People who are at one end of the political spectrum or the other tend to be very out there, up front, yes, we're supporting Jeremy Corbyn, Nigel Farage, or whatever. And that's why I said just now about the caution as to whether all of those people who are currently saying they'll vote Reform will actually go and vote, because that's the big issue for the Reform Party as it stands in September 2025.
Are there parallels between the rise of Reform and Nigel Farage in the UK and the second coming of Donald Trump in America?
There are parallels all over the place, not just in the United States. One looks at, we may have, should I say, we may not have a French government on Monday because of the vote in the Assemblée Nationale. The right in Germany, in Italy, in Spain, as well as in the United States, there is an indication that people, particularly who had voted for a left-wing party, the Democrats or whatever, have moved their social conservatism to a right-wing, more right-wing party. In the case of the United States, it's Donald Trump.
Is Britain moving left or right, do you think? Because I think that might be a hard question to answer, given the fact that Jeremy Corbyn's setting up a left-wing party which could indeed split the governing party and provoke a snap election in, let's say, 2027. So is Britain moving left or right, or both, do you think?
I think it's moving all over the place. The legacy parties, if I can use that term, i.e. the Conservatives and Labour, are out of favour massively. And again, that's true in other countries. And people are going to Jeremy Corbyn, to the Greens, to Reform, whoever it may happen to be on either side. I would also say at this stage, people have moved right to Reform, but certainly some of the policies that Reform have identified, for example, their support for the ending of the two-child cap, one would describe as not fiscally sound and certainly of the left. So it's dangerous purely identifying it as right or left at this stage. We'll have to see what policies Reform come out with and are subjected to scrutiny before we know whether they remain a right-wing party.
Lord Hayward, what a delight and a privilege to meet you. I do hope you'll join me on the show again in the near future. My deep thanks to Lord Hayward, Conservative peer, pollster and political analyst, with a very measured set of answers there to my questions. Let me tell you that we've got lots more to come. It is, of course, Reform UK Party Conference, and normally a smaller party having their annual conference. It's not a story, just fills a few column inches, but this could be the next government that we'll be talking about. So are Reform UK ready for government? Do they have the resources? Do they have the infrastructure? Do they have the people? I'll be asking the former Manchester mayoral candidate for Reform next.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
I do not feel sorry for Angela Rayner, says Eleanor. This whole bunch of clowns we have for government are bringing the country down. A reshuffle should have been the removal of the lot of them. Do you feel sorry for Angela Rayner? Richie says no. Mark, I do not feel sorry for the Deputy Prime Minister. Absolutely not in any way. Dave in Lancashire. Morning, Mark. I don't feel sorry for Rayner. She advised to get expert advice. She chose not to. She got caught. Good riddance, says Dave in Manchester. Kevin, no sympathy for Rayner whatsoever. She tried to avoid tax and got found out. Simple, good riddance. That seems to be a very consistent message. I'll get to more of your calls shortly. Are the Tories dead? I'll be asking Tory grandee Sir John Redwood in 10 minutes' time. It is a box office booking. You won't want to miss that. Talking of box office, by the way, my first Dolan dispatch since my return to Talk at 9 a.m. It's about Rayner. It's about reform. I'm not pulling my punches. But let's focus on Reform now, who are hosting their annual conference this weekend. And it's a significant event because, as we've just discovered, the polls tell us that if there were an election tomorrow, then Nigel Farage would likely be our next Prime Minister. But are they ready for government? Do they have the infrastructure? Do they have the people? Do they have the expertise? Let's get the views now of Dan Barker, former Manchester mayoral candidate for Reform and a Reform Party board member. Good morning, Dan.
Good morning.
Are
Thanks
you at conference? It's great to see you on the show. Are you at conference?
At conference in the NEC in Birmingham, yes. Yeah,
Very
really
good.
enjoying it. It's a really big event, much bigger than last year. If last year was a statement, this is really saying that we've arrived.
And I've heard that there are lots of people who are younger in attendance. We know that the support for the Conservatives is people in their 60s and 70s. Reform has an influx of support from young voters.
Yes, I mean, it's about double, I think, this year overall in terms of the attendees. The tickets were sold out, members only. There's a lot more young people here, and when I get round the branches and social events, I notice there's a lot more young people actively involved in local branches wanting to stand supporting the party.
Yes, I mean, I can understand why those disillusioned Conservative voters are flocking to Reform UK. It is a party of the right. But why are young people who are not traditionally right-leaning flocking to Reform, do you think?
Well, I think, we maybe underestimate the youth, the younger people. They're not stupid. I think they realise that they look round, they see what they're getting in school, with the education system.
Woke policies, woke ideology being peddled in the classroom.
Absolutely. They're not buying it, and they're not getting any other viewpoints at school as well. So what we find is when they do come along and speak to us in branches or at the party, they really they're really quite against all this stuff. And I think they see us as the answer, the common sense alternative and something to kind of grasp on for hope.
Reform UK have the public support. They've got the votes. If there were an election tomorrow, I'm certainly confident that they would win with a decent majority. The issue is that your party's not ready, is it? You need 10 years just to get the people together and the infrastructure.
Well, I would say normally, in normal circumstances, yes, but I don't think we're in normal times, and things are moving pretty fast for us and also in the background for the party. I mean, this time last year, we were polling around 20%. Now we're polling at 35%. We had huge wins in May, and we're hoping to repeat that next May. As you heard from Nigel Farage yesterday, our assumption or expectation is there may be an early election as early as 2027. And so we're preparing for that, and we have been doing since last summer.
But who's going to be Chancellor? Who's going to be Home Secretary? What are the policies going to be? How are you going to pay for it all? This is back of the fag packet policy making, isn't it?
Well, I mean, obviously we've got 4 MPs at the moment. We will be standing a full set of candidates. If a general election was called tomorrow, we would have a full set of candidates across all the constituencies. And Nigel's already sort of hinted that, sort of thinking outside the box, that we may not have a cabinet that's fully staffed with elected MPs. There may be some appointments there from people outside of Parliament. And I think there's a case for doing that in certain roles, where you for example, look at Rachel Reeves, with her CV, which has proven to be, she's been proven to be very underqualified for the role as Chancellor. And that's an area where you could look at bringing someone in who's a real economic titan, who's got some credibility there, with the finance industry, with the markets. That's for instance, of course. And then obviously we're doing, the party's getting ready. We're getting our, preparing our kind of parliamentary lists, so that's happening in the background, doing the assessment centres, doing the vetting, so that we've got a full set of candidates to stand in Wales, in Scotland, and ultimately in England as well.
And Farage are making a lot of positive noises for those red wall constituencies in terms of, renationalising certain industries. It's going to be a very much working class support that drives the Reform UK project, which is going to involve big state, big spending. But meanwhile, we're going to cut taxes. How do you square that circle?
Well, I mean, the one example for the sort of nationalisation, I think, was the water industry. But I mean, that really that's a privatisation experiment that's failed. It failed sort of 20 years ago, but nothing's really changed. So I think that's, rather than sort of calling that a left-wing policy, I think that's common sense. It's saying we need to step in here. We cannot be a serious country that can, not have a water supply that's big enough for the population. But I would wait and see what's in the final manifesto before the election. And there's a lot of speculation about, are we left, are we right? I would say the driving imperative is about common sense, looking at the circumstances where we are and seeing, well, what do we need to do now? The pragmatism, I think that's what we bring, that historically the Tories used to bring a long time ago and was a winning formula. I think that's part of what the reforms kind of offering is as well.
Most definitely. Has Angela Rayner's departure taken the shine off this week's conference?
Oh, no, absolutely not. I mean, it's... I think, she's gone and she's made her name in many ways by calling other people out for perceived wrongdoings. And so she's lived by the sword, and now she's had to fall by the sword. And I think what it does speak to with her situation is the entitlement and hypocrisy that we see from her and other members of the cabinet in Labour. So I think it's very damaging as well for the public perception of politics when we see senior politicians like Angela Rayner showing through their actions that it's one rule for her, for them, and another rule for the rest of us. And also, sorry, go on.
Yeah, what about the Tories? Do you think that they will eventually find their mojo and pose a threat to Reform UK? Because if we set aside the possibility of a 2027 election, if Labour collapse, it's most likely still that it's 2029, which is 4 years from now. That gives the Tories time to regroup. Are you conscious that they'll try to steal your clothes, shift right, maybe even change their leader to someone that makes more Reform UK type noises like Robert Jenrick?
Well, I think they're probably doing or going to do all those things, actually, Mark. But I think no one's listening because, if you listen to the rhetoric, they're making some valid points, but no one thinks they would ever actually implement them, like leaving the ECHR now is the kind of thing that they're talking about in the shadow cabinets. Mm-hmm. But if they were ever back in power and it was put to a vote, they would never vote for it. Like all this kind of tough talk from Robert Jenrick about deportations, his party would never let him do that. So it's all meaningless kind of bluster from them.
Dan Barker, what's your plan for the day? Because this is another big day, lots of speeches and a bit of socialising afterwards. So do you want to take me through your day at conference?
Well, I'm going to get my breakfast shortly, but I'm on the stage.
You're going to be fighting Richard Tice for the croissant.
I'm hoping for a cooked breakfast, actually. But
of course, this is Reform. I would think of nothing less. Full English, right?
Bacon and eggs, that's the one, yes. I'm on stage with the other board members about 11 o'clock, and we're doing the membership of put forward motions, so I think there's going to be a debate on that, or certainly a presentation. And then I shall be sort of meeting the members throughout the day. That's kind of my role as board member.
And a couple of pints of old speckled hen this evening, I would have thought.
I'm not staying over. That was last night, but yes.
Well, let me tell you, you look remarkably fresh on it. I wish I had your stamina. Dan, thanks very much for your time. Enjoy conference. My thanks to Dan Barker, the former Manchester mayoral candidate for Reform and a Reform Party board member. Are the Conservatives dead? I'll be asking Sir John Redwood next.
it is a huge loss. Angela Rayner is an incredibly effective politician. She's spearheaded many of Labour's most popular bills, most popular policies. She's also very good at mediating within the party as well and making sure that that broad church can operate. But at the same time, it's also right that after the report was handed down and it found that she did breach the ministerial code, she was very quick to leave. And I think that is something that we're seeing from ministers when they resign in this government. It happens very quickly. There's no clinging on.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Now, some of the most pessimistic polls suggest the Conservatives could win as few as 30 or 40 seats at the next election. Can this once insuperable political force recover ground? Who better to ask than one of the most high-profile and respected figures within the Conservative movement, Sir John Redwood. Sir John, welcome to Talk. Under the Tories, we had illiberal draconian lockdowns, the highest taxes since the war, net zero, a bloated and ever-expanding state, and the woke ideological capture of our public institutions. Reform UK are the real Conservatives now, aren't they?
I think there are lots of real Conservatives now, and some support reform and some support the Conservative Party, and there's obviously a battle going on between the two parties as to who will get the edge come the general election. I would urge all good Conservatives to unite in opposing this government, because as we've seen over a year on, it's a complete disaster, and the bad things the Conservatives were doing or not doing has been made worse, and the good things the Conservatives doing are being reversed. And so the country is in a far worse mess now than the situation they inherited.
And do you think, Sir John, that the right need to unite in order to face down Labour, and that would involve some sort of partnership, some sort of collaboration between the Conservatives and Reform UK? Would you sanction such a move, such an approach?
Well, I don't think there can be a formal coalition or agreement at the moment, because Reform are riding very high. People love their rhetoric. They haven't had to think through yet the details of how you would actually achieve what they want to achieve. But a lot of the things that they want to achieve are things that the new Conservative Party wants to achieve, or it was things that Conservative ministers were trying to achieve but failed for a variety of reasons. But I do think there needs to be, as I'm sure there will be, proper collaboration in opposition. We don't have enough opposition MPs in total. The country only has 20% support for Labour at the moment, but Labour has 2/3 of the MPs in the House. So, of course, Reform and Conservative MPs have to cooperate in opposing the worst features of Labour rule, because they do actually agree that Labour rule is at the moment doing huge harm to the economy, has made the illegal migration situation worse, and hasn't developed the policies the Conservatives were beginning to implement to bring down the very high numbers of legal migration either.
Sir John, you are a titan of the Conservative movement. You are a robust and ideologically consistent Conservative. Why haven't you defected to Reform UK?
Well, I see my role as providing independent commentary and advice. I have a public voice, and I will continue to be a public voice for what I think is good conservatism. And to me, good conservatism is controlling migration, it is putting British people first, it is wider ownership, it is lowering taxes, it is having a growth strategy that makes sense, it is getting rid of the absurdities of contradictory net zero policies, which are deindustrializing us, losing us jobs, and putting world CO2 up. And there are so many good conservative causes out there. I will be a voice for them, and I welcome anyone of whatever party who wants to get behind those causes, because for the next 3 years probably we have a Labour government that's going in the wrong direction and has lost its way, and all those of us with a voice need to try and urge them to do something different and better.
Sir John, what is your appraisal of the current leadership of the Conservative Party?
I think Kemi Badenoch is doing an excellent job. She was a very brave leader before she became leader of the Conservative Party, attacking wokery, which is a common cause between many Conservative Party supporters and many Reform Party supporters, and she's been an important voice for that based on her own experiences. I think now you're seeing that Robert Jenrick is a very effective voice in campaigning against the excesses of putting international lawyers and international law before the needs of British people. I think Chris Philp is doing an excellent job highlighting the collapse of the Home Office, and you can see the proof of the pudding in that, because even the Prime Minister thinks that the outgoing Home Secretary had lost it and needed to be moved sideways. So I think you do see very effective voices in opposition, and of course it was Conservative MPs who put forward very detailed legislative proposals to the Labour government to transform the migration situation, which Labour obviously voted down, but it's that kind of detailed work that is very necessary to show the Conservative movement is serious about improving the government of this country.
But are the Conservatives, as a movement and as a party, we know the most successful political party in the history of European democracy, are they in denial about the extent to which their support has fallen away and the extent to which my viewers and listeners are furious at their legacy?
I think Conservatives are well aware of that, and obviously are having lots of.
You've just said that Kemi Badenoch's doing a good job, and you're a big fan of Chris Philp. I mean, these figures are not making headlines within the political sphere at the moment, are they?
Well, we're just talking about them now on your excellent show, and you're often talking about the very detailed proposals on migration, for example, which only found form in words and in parliamentary debate, thanks to Conservative parliamentarians who did the work and proposed them as formal amendments. It's that kind of detailed work that you can get from 121 Conservative MPs, whereas Reform, who are down to, 4 MPs at the moment, really don't have the spread of people to sit on the committees and attend all the debates. And I do believe in parliamentary opposition. I think if you pin a government down in Parliament and keep on facing it with its own inadequacies and errors, you're more likely to get change. And we've got to be realistic. We're not going to get a general election tomorrow. We're not suddenly going to have a big change in the composition of the Parliament in terms of MPs. So what you've got to do is change the minds of all those mindless Labour MPs who are following Starmer as he goes round and round in circles, or leads the country into economic doom and mass illegal migration.
Has Kemi Badenoch been too slow to announce policies?
I don't think so. I think she was right to say that there is no point in setting out a manifesto for an election likely to be in 2028, 2029. Things will be very different then. I fear quite a lot of things are going to be a lot worse, and you'll then see what the crucial priorities are at that moment. But she has been announcing policy on the way in order to try and get the government to change its policies. One of the duties of opposition, I think, is to be constructive. I don't think you just point out it's a mess. Everybody can see it's a mess. You need to show the government how they might do better. I mean, for example, we've just had a very good announcement from my point of view that we should get our own oil and gas out of the ground with all the extra jobs and tax revenue that would bring. Why can't a government that says it believes in growth and jobs get that point? And why can't it see that its own policy is idiotic in terms of net zero? Because if we import liquefied natural gas, there's far more CO2 involved in getting it out, liquefying it and transporting it than just having our own gas down a pipe from the North Sea. I mean, it's that kind of idiocy which is annoying all Conservatives with a small c. And we need to unite to say to the government, if you really believe in growth, if you really care about Britain, you don't put imports first, you don't put foreigners first, you get our own oil and gas out of the ground, you collect the tax from it, and then you don't need to tax us to death if we dare to create jobs or make some more money.
Now, Sir John, you were on my show when I was previously at Talk at the tail end of the pandemic. It was the Drive Time show, and you had a clear message in that post-pandemic period, which is that the Chancellor and the Prime Minister should go for growth. I remember you coining that phrase, and I'm sure that's a mantra to which you're still attached. But one of the issues we have, so many of the problems that we now face in this country appear to be the legacy of not just the Conservatives generally, but specifically Boris Johnson. We have the Boris wave, unchecked legal migration of upwards of 1 million people a year, the pursuit of net zero, and the COVID overreaction, all on the watch of Boris Johnson, for which we're paying a high economic price. Are you angry with what Boris Johnson did whilst in office?
Well, I opposed those things at the time, and I'm very glad we don't any longer believe in them. I mean, the Conservatives did start to correct the migration position before they left office rather prematurely, with the encouragement of myself and a few others, and they put in a number of quite big changes which cut the illegal migration figures quite a lot to the benefit of the incoming Labour government, who, if anything, have gone the other way and made it worse again. And I think they should have gone a lot further. I was an opponent of the extremes of lockdown because I thought the borrowing that it required to carry people and businesses through was excessive, and I thought the risk was greatly exaggerated. You needed to protect the vulnerable but not to lock everybody else up. And I was an opponent of the excessive money printing and the bond buying in the later stages, which the Bank of England undertook with the full agreement of the then Chancellor and Prime Minister. I couldn't do more than express disagreement at the time. I'm now very pleased that I can see a number of leading Conservative politicians who do believe we need a totally different approach and have already started changing that approach in the Conservative Party itself. And obviously Reform also want a different approach. In some of the areas, I welcome what they're saying as well.
Briefly, Sir John, how do you see the Conservatives recover ground and see off the threat of Reform UK and make an effort to diminish the enormous momentum that they currently have?
Well, I mean, you must ask them that. I mean, I've told you what I'm doing. I see myself as a Conservative voice, and I want to see the Conservatives with a big C and a small c do well, because I think our country has much need of it, and the country shares that view, which is the main thing. And we're now showing consistently that Reform and Conservative Party together poll more than half of the electorate in the polls, which is more than enough to have a Conservative with a small c government. There is still obviously a lot of jostling going on between Reform and Conservatives about who might lead that government. But the two parties are battling it out. I'm less interested in the battle between the parties than I am in the battle of ideas with the electorate generally, because there won't be a Conservative government unless people believe in the Conservative ideas of the kind I've been setting out.
So, Sir John, I wish we had longer. A privilege to have you on the show. Thank you for your time. More to come.
How much, ladies and gentlemen, are fish and chips where you come from? We'll go to Jason in Crewe.
Jason from Crewe, fish, chips and peas, £7.50. It's the best chippy in England.
Janice in Leeds, go.
Regarding fish and chips, in Leeds it's between £9.50 and £12.75.
Whitby, how much is fish and chips?
3 of us, fish, chips, peas, I think one of us curry sauce, 3 cans of pop, just short of 70 quid.
£70? That's 23 quid a head, man. Even my maths does that. Very quickly, a voice note. Campbell in Scotland, go.
Up here in Banter, in the northeast of Scotland, we can get a fillet and a half of haddock with a regular chips for £8 and 10 pence, and it's by far and away one of the best chippies I've ever had.
Kenneth in Surrey, fish and chips, go.
Fish and chips in Ascot, about half a mile from where you used to live, will cost you £12.60. Great show. Keep up the good work.
That's why I moved, because you were living there. When was the last time you had fish and chips?
Couple of weeks ago.
How much? Where'd you get it from?
I think it was about 40 quid. It was in the Ivy.
Honestly, you really are. For any of you who think he's a man of the people, I nearly said you're a...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, a very happy Saturday to one and all. I'm Mark Dolan, and this is Talk, the home of common sense, and a very packed 2 hours to come, with two of the biggest political stories of the year. The Deputy Prime Minister, Angela Rayner, three pads Ange, has stood down in a row over unpaid stamp duty. Rayner's out, and Reeves is under pressure. Is this the beginning of the end of the Starmer project? And is Angela Rayner the Labour Party's Boris Johnson? Will she regroup now, waiting in the wings to take control of the party before the next election? One thing is very clear: Angela Rayner is not going away quietly. And what about that reshuffle? David Lammy, the man who thinks you can grow a cervix, the man who completely flopped on Mastermind, well, he's the Deputy Prime Minister. Is this the man you want in charge if Starmer falls? And our new Home Secretary goes on pro-Palestine marches. Is this Britain's first anti-Israel Home Secretary? And as Starmer's government crumbles, the opposition parties smell blood, with the small matter of one Nigel Farage raging ahead in the polls and hosting his party's conference this weekend. Is Nigel Farage the answer to Britain's problems? Are they ready for power? Do they have the infrastructure? Do they have the policies? Do they have the people? We'll be speaking to the biggest names in Reform UK this morning. So a big 2 hours, and your opinion is central to this show. 0344 499 1000. Book your place on the show. Do you feel sorry for Angela Rayner? Do you have sympathy? And by the way, are the Tories toast? Because we're discussing Labour, we're discussing Rayner, we're discussing Starmer, we're talking about Nigel Farage. No one mentions Kemi Badenoch. Is it game over? Have they reached the point of no return? And something very special coming at 9 o'clock. It is my first Dolan dispatch since my return to the airwaves. That's right, the monologue is back. I'll be dropping some truth bombs at 9 a.m. in 1 hour's time. I'm not pulling my punches. I may get in trouble, producer Ryan. And do you know what? Good. That's actually what I'm here to do. I'm here to make trouble. And if telling the truth and representing your views and not pulling my punches gets me in trouble, then so be it. Price well worth paying. After all, this is Talk, the home of free speech, the home of fearless opinion, and the home of something that's increasingly rare these days: common sense. So it's all happening in Birmingham at the Reform UK conference. We're going to speak to some big names. We're also going to put a call out, by the way, to Jeremy Kyle and Mike Graham, who are there at conference, and I'm told that they were pressing the flesh well into the early hours last night. And they were working the bars because they're both great professionals. JK and MG are true broadcasting professionals. They're fearless journalists, and they understand that if you want to get the story, you've got to go to the bars, and you can't not have a drink because otherwise people don't trust you. And so I look forward to catching up with Mike Graham and Jeremy Kyle before the end of the show. It'll be brilliant. So look, all of that to come. But one of the big news stories of the last 24 hours is the defection of the Tory grandee Nadine Dorries joining Reform UK. So are more big Conservative Party names set to defect to Nigel Farage's insurgent political project? First of all, let's have a listen to Nadine Dorries yesterday addressing Reform UK conference.
And I'm going to deliver probably a slightly more serious message. The reason why is this government is in deep and serious trouble. It is falling apart. It is dividing and fracturing. The Conservative Party did that a number of years ago. But it's not just our political parties which are in trouble. It's the country too.
Well, she made quite a splash yesterday at Reform UK Party conference. Let's get reaction now from a former Conservative advisor, Lauren McEvett. Lauren, welcome to Talk. Great to have you on the show. How much of a scalp is Nadine Dorries for Nigel Farage?
I don't think it is much of one. I think if Nigel Farage wants to be taken seriously as a political movement, he's got to stop picking up the dregs of the Conservative Party. He's had some good defections. My former boss went over, and obviously I think David Jones is a spectacular politician and a really big loss to the Conservative Party. I don't think Nadine Dorries is. I think she went slightly cuckoo's in the nest with her book and started seeing conspiracy theorists absolutely everywhere. I don't think that reform can just be that, the slightly battier wing of the Conservative Party and hope to get elected in a couple of years. They're doing very well. They're currently very popular. But I think if they begin to pick up more and more ex-Conservatives, what they're going to get a reputation for is being the home of the slightly battier wing of the Conservative Party. And I think in the longer run, people aren't going to want to see that elected.
Now, isn't that quite a rude and dismissive thing to say about Nadine Dorries, who isn't a stupid person? First of all, she, I think, has sold 3.5 million books as a successful author. The political tomes that she's written have also been bestsellers and got the nation talking. She's one of the most high-profile Conservative figures out there, and profile is exactly what the existing Tory party doesn't have.
Competence is exactly what reform need, and we are talking about the woman who allegedly called up Nick Clegg at Facebook when she was the digital minister and said, why hasn't a tweet been removed, because she didn't know which company did what. I have to say that's a rumour on the street rather than something I know for a fact, but I do think that it's really important to have competence in government, and I don't actually believe that Nadine Dorries has competence in government. She is the one who pushed for and passed the Online Safety Act, which
before it was hijacked,
so very much.
Before it was hijacked by woke lefties, the original incarnation of that legislation was to protect kids, which is what it should be.
The woke lefties you're talking about is the Conservative Party. We're the ones who passed this. It was not hijacked by the left in the chamber. This is Nadine Dorries' bill. This is the one that she pushed for. This is her legacy that we're dealing with. And I think that it's very silly of Nigel to have taken her when he wants to go so heavily on how bad the Online Safety Act is.
And so Nadine Dorries you don't see as a significant scalp. Do you fear, though, further, more high-profile defections from more respected figures within the Conservative Party?
Yes, I do. And from a Conservative perspective, I think that would be a very bad thing if we start to lose, very, very big beasts. If we lost, for example, someone like Alex Burghardt, which I don't think we will. But I think that Alex Burghardt is a current big beast, and were he to walk away, I think if we lost Jacob Rees-Mogg, that would be very bad. But I think that Nadine Dorries is not such a beast. And I do think that from a party reputational perspective, Nigel Farage, if he wants to start taking defections, needs to start taking defections with a reputation for competence in government. And Laura Ann Jones from the Senedd and Nadine Dorries are not the people who fall into that category.
So how do the Conservatives close the gap on Reform UK?
That is very hard to see under our current leadership. Kemi Badenoch is not doing well. There's really no grounds upon which we can say that she is. She's completely failed to take the media mantle away from Nigel Farage. Admittedly, and in her favour, it's very hard to do so. Nigel is a force, all of his own. I wonder if there's almost anybody that we could have put up ever who's succeeded in kneecapping Nigel Farage, electorally speaking. I don't know that Kemi is going to be the woman to do it, but I know that we have a very difficult set of elections next May. Our constitution says that she is safe until November. Between November and May, I think that there's a really very serious question to be asked about whether or not it's worth replacing her and tagging a new leader with what's going to come in May next year. It may be better to wait until after that. Ironically, a lot of the problems that exist, certainly within the Welsh Conservative Party, are not of Kemi Badenoch's making, and therefore what's coming west of Offa's next year is probably not her fault anyway. But we shouldn't tag a new leader with this if we can possibly help it.
So what's missing for the Conservatives at the moment at the top? Is it personality or policy?
I think it's a combination of both. I think that this, wait and see. We'll do all these policy commissions. We'll have loads of time in opposition to something from Heal, and it's not working this time. The force of Nigel Farage means that this isn't a traditional move into opposition for my party, where we do get a couple of years to lick our wounds. We don't. We have to pivot really, really quickly. And I think what Nigel Farage is really, really good at, oddly, something I think that Shabana Mahmood, the new Home Secretary, is quite good at, is the political nous of saying, no, I'm sorry, that's incredibly stupid, we're not doing that anymore, and just coming out and saying, we'll get rid of this, we'll get rid of that. We have a problem in the Conservative Party in that a lot of the stuff that Nigel is talking about is stuff that came in under our watch. And so for Kemi, who was in that government, divorcing herself completely from the things that went on in that government becomes a little harder, which is why what I was saying about whether or not Nadine Dorries is going to be able to sit happily within reform, having passed some of the legislation that Nigel Farage is so vehemently against, it's going to be, I think, one to watch. And if she now is able to have such a complete break with her own personal history that she says that this piece of legislation is absolutely rubbish and she shouldn't have passed it, then that too will be something very interesting to watch. But I think that Kemi's initial instinct that we could take time and develop policy slowly is something that's not working. No. And I think we have a front bench who are, in many respects, very good. I think Robert Jenrick is excellent. But when I hear people saying, oh, well, he's got his camera out and this is all about a future leadership challenge, no. Every single member of the shadow cabinet is supposed to be performing the way that Robert Jenrick is currently performing. And at the moment, only Robert Jenrick, and to a certain degree now James Cleverly, are performing that way. And so what you need is a full team of heavy hitters, each one of them going out every day as much as possible and slamming their number in government and saying, no, you are doing it wrong and here is why. And really only Robert and to a certain degree James are currently doing that, and we need everybody to be doing that.
Most definitely. Now, under the Conservatives, we had the Boris wave, enormous legal net migration of up to 1 million people.
Which Nadine Dorries was also in government for.
Yeah, fair enough, fair point. We've also had net zero, the COVID overreaction, the highest taxes since the war. It's about time the Conservatives were consigned to the dustbin of history, isn't it? I can't tell you how angry so many of my viewers and listeners are about the legacy of their 14 years in power, particularly the last 5.
I think there's a solid argument for consigning Boris Johnson to the dustbin of history, under whose watch most of that happened, and under whose watch he had Jake Berry and Nadine Dorries employed. So if Reform are saying that the last 5 years is not what they want to repeat, Boris Johnson followers is probably not the people they should be picking up. And yet that's exactly who Nigel Farage is picking up. And I think that as soon as the electorate starts to work that out, they're going to start to punish Nigel, because you're absolutely right. The Boris wave was completely unacceptable, and Nadine Dorries and Jake Berry were fundamental to it.
Listen, Lauren, brilliant to have you on the show, dropping plenty of truth bombs about the Conservatives. Former Conservative advisor Lauren McEvett, fascinating conversation at your reaction 03444991000. Ryan, can I tell the viewers and listeners? Yes, great news breaking right now. The brilliant and rather fortuitous Richard Tice will be on the show in 30 minutes' time. Richard Tice live on the Talk Breakfast Show in exactly half an hour. Don't miss it. Another box office interview. Richard Tice at 8:45. I'll tell you who's also box office is Vernon in Staffordshire, who's not happy about our new Home Secretary, who, it's our understanding, is very interested in ID cards. Vernon, why are you so worried about this policy?
I don't trust them. I don't trust any politician. Why would I?
Yeah.
Since COVID, they've lied. Sorry, all of them. Every single one of them. Politics in this country at this moment in time has never been at such a low level, such a dishonest level. I wouldn't trust them with my children's money, let alone running the government, running the country. It's digital ID. That's all it is, and we've got it all. We've got driving licence, we've got credit cards. They just want to control us. Nothing more than that, Mark. That's all it is.
And we'll be told this is to stop illegal immigration, which, of course, achieved very little in France, and they've got IDs.
It's just an excuse, Mark. It's all sound bites. The reality of it is there is a much bigger picture here, and it is all about control. They want access to your bank accounts. They want access to your day-to-day life. They want to be able to stop you from leaving your town, as it were. You're only allowed to travel 15 minutes. It's very serious, Mark. It's really, really, besides Russia and then the communism way. Well, this is a glorified form of communism.
Vernon, just briefly, Vernon, just devil's advocate, and you're entitled to your view. They would argue that they want to make us safer and our lives more convenient. Are you convinced?
Why would that argument stand up when you can go to Calais, okay, you can get on a dinghy, you can chuck your passport into the English Channel, and you are given 3 square meals a day in a 4 or 5-star hotel, when we have war veterans on the streets, citizens who've contributed to this once great country. Why would we trust them?
Vernon, call me again. I really enjoyed our conversation. 03444991000. And next up, is this the beginning of the end for Keir Starmer's premiership? We'll debate that. Don't go anywhere.
It is a huge loss. Angela Rayner is an incredibly effective politician. She's spearheaded many of Labour's most popular bills, most popular policies. She's also very good at mediating within the party as well and making sure that that broad church can operate. But at the same time, it's also right that after the report was handed down and it found that she did breach the ministerial code, she was very quick to leave. And I think that is something that we're seeing from ministers when they resign in this government. It happens very quickly. There's no clinging on.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
So is this the beginning of the end for Starmer's premiership, given the fact that yesterday his Deputy Prime Minister had to resign in disgrace, with lots of other embarrassing moments in his premiership, not to mention a collapsing economy and a failure to smash the gangs? Well, let's have a great debate about this now, because Talk is the home of common sense and it's the home of diverse opinion. It doesn't get more diverse than political commentator Mike Indian and Matthew Goodwin Freeman, who is a Conservative councillor. Chaps, welcome to Talk Towers. First of all, Mike, are you feeling nervous as a Labour supporter this morning?
No, I'm actually feeling relieved that the whole Angela Rayner situation has resolved itself. I mean, was I sad to see her leave the government? Yes, because she's delivered two impressive achievements: biggest uplift in social housing spending in a generation and the Employment Rights Bill. But by the end of the week, it became clear that she wasn't going to measure up to the high standards Keir Starmer applies to his ministers. And it could have been politically convenient to keep her. He didn't. He let her go. And I think that was the right decision.
You mentioned her legacy in office. I mean, this red tape that businesses face is a further insult following the hike on national insurance, isn't it? I mean, those policies are simply going to kill growth, which apparently Rachel Reeves is very passionate about.
I don't think so. Growth figures have held up remarkably well so far. In fact, actually, we've had more trouble from the macroeconomic circumstances in the global area. But the UK's
growth has halved in a year.
Yeah, but the figures for the most recent quarter were revised upwards, and growth is still well below where it should be, and the job market has cooled, but we are increasing employment protections from a very low level comparatively. So day one rights, say, from constructive dismissal. The UK has some of the lowest levels of that in the world. So our labour market is still going to be comparatively liberal in terms of the laws that are applied to it.
And where was Angela Rayner with her 1.5 million houses to build in this Parliament?
Well, just try and have a look.
Well,
no,
I mean,
can't see yet.
We can see a crane from the window. For
I don't think it's not got an Angela Rayner banner on it.
I don't think Angela Rayner. I mean,
so Matthew Goodwin Freeman is looking out of the window of Talk Towers, and he cannot find many houses.
I can't see 1.5 million Angela Rayner houses.
We're a year in.
I mean, I don't know if she's bought any of them. I'm not sure. I'll have to check.
I could get Ryan Thrussell to do the numbers, but if it's 1.5 million houses in 5 years, then I guess we'd be hoping for something like 250,000 by now. Is that where we're at?
I mean, that figure of 300,000 houses, to say that was dependent entirely on the planning reforms alone was an oversight. I think a large chunk of that will come from the social housing budget uplift that she achieved from the Treasury, a considerable win for her, and it's one of the few ministers I think that could counterweight Rachel Reeves' weight in the Treasury there too. And bear in mind, we are opposite the City of London here, so if Angela Rayner was buying up land in the City of London, I think we'd be saying that was a huge waste of taxpayers' money as well. But I don't think Labour will realise that ambition, Mark. I think it was fundamentally a bit of a moonshot and a bit of a mistake to commit to it without more public investment in housing.
Like smashing the gangs and making Britain's
and growing the
economy. Well, this government still has, if we believe, if we don't believe Nigel Farage, this government still has 3 to 4 years left to run. So let's judge them on that. But ultimately, we've lost one of the most effective ministers that spearhead not just the social housing budget, the Employment Rights Bill, but also the renters reforms, the planning and infrastructure bill, the English devolution bill going through as well. And she was fundamentally, for many Labour supporters, a symbol of, social mobility. And no one can deny that she has impressive achievements to her name. But ultimately, Keir Starmer sets a very clear standard for what his ministers should behave to. There is a code which wasn't always applied under large swathes of the last government. Angela Rayner did not measure up to that, and that is why she had to go.
So there you go. This is actually a reboot for Sir Keir Starmer, Matthew.
Yeah, I think we're in phase 3 now, or 4. I've lost count. Phase 1 was a year. Phase 2 was 2 days. We're in phase 3 now.
Phase 2.1.
Oh God. Okay, so I think it's like his 15th
relaunch. It's like an update on your iPhone. You get lots of them.
God. I mean, this Labour government. I want to smash my head. It's so. Please, can we have a general election? Can we just get rid of them?
They are struggling, are they not, because of unchecked legal and illegal immigration.
Yeah.
The cost,
which they said they'd smash the gangs, but they're smashing the records instead.
Okay, but the cost of net zero. Law and order, you've got shoplifting, you have Nescafe Gold Blend now in my local co-op, which has got a tag on it.
Yeah, now cheese is tagged now. You can't even get cheese without having to take it to some guy to get the security tag.
Cathedral City.
Morrison's. Other stores are available.
Okay, but you interrupted me because this is not the fault of Keir Starmer or Rachel Reeves or Angela Rayner. It's the fault of Boris Johnson, Rishi Sunak and Theresa May.
And the Conservatives are not in government anymore because we lost the election because of that. I've always come on and said,
So why don't you
we
tear
made
up your
mistakes."
membership card of the Tories because they have destroyed this country?
Well, because I have faith and loyalty in the fact that change is possible. You know, Labour won the election on the basis of one word, change. I have been fighting since July the 5th for change in the Conservative Party, and I will keep fighting and fighting until the point where I go, do you know what? I can't fight anymore. I've lost every fibre of my being.
But where is that?
You know,
point for you?
I'm trying desperately. My frustration with the Conservative Party, which I have always said, is, you know, we hold our hands up. We lost the election. We messed up. We destroyed. We're absolutely lost control. That's why we lost the election. What we now have to do, which any opposition needs to do, is come up with a credible plan of what we would do if we came back into government. Now, what I have seen from the Conservative Party from the last year is silence.
Yes.
Absolute silence.
And total denial.
And my frustration is that we have people like Robert Jenrick, we have people like James Cleverly, other people in the party who are coming up with ideas, who are going out there and speaking to the things that people really care about, but it never filters through. And that's my frustration. As a grassroots member of the party, as a young Conservative who joined years ago, I'm still a young Conservative, thank you, and as a local councillor, I am there, finger on the pulse, hearing what people's frustrations are. And I feed that through. I feed that back through into the party, and it goes into a void. I have urged the Conservative Party time and time again. Our job in opposition is to come up with a positive vision of what we would do if we were given the honour to be government again. And we haven't had that. And we're told that maybe at this party conference we're going to get ideas and policies coming out. Well, it's a year too late. We should have got these last year. We should have had these policies out already. So that is my plea to the Conservative Party. And every time I come on, I say it. We've held our hands up. We've apologised. We've said we've messed up. Now we need to come up with our vision. Otherwise, we are toast, and we are seeing that.
Reform UK are going to stop the boats. They're going to unilaterally scrap net zero. They're not just getting rid of the target for net zero. They're scrapping it all together, and they're going to cut taxes. Why haven't you already joined Reform UK?
Well, these are all small C Conservative policies that I really, really value and believe in. My view is that there isn't one party that stands for all of these. It is possible for the Conservative Party to come out and say, we would scrap net zero. We would, scrap, massively increase the oil and field gas licences. You know, we would massively support, British people. It's possible for the Conservatives to do that. I am pushing and pushing and pushing for the Conservatives to do that. But we're getting to a point where, frankly, even if the Conservatives announce all these policies, people will just say, well, you're just copying Reform now. And we've lost the emphasis.
What would you say to my many viewers and listeners who will simply never forgive the Conservatives for particularly the last 5 years, the illiberal and, in my view, economically disastrous and ill-judged lockdowns, net zero and the Boris wave? What would you say to my viewers and listeners who will never forgive the Tories?
So what I always say is the Conservative Party is a brand, but look at the individuals. The Conservatives ejected hundreds of MPs at the last election. The public voted them out. You have a new bunch of MPs and some existing MPs.
Closet Liberal Democrats, aren't they?
Potentially. At the next election, we will have a full slate of Conservative candidates for the election. I would say judge people on their track record. Think about the person rather than the party. And that's what I say to my electorate. As a local councillor, I'm up for election next year. And I'll be saying to my voters, look at what I have done locally. Forget the party ticket.
Mike Indian, you can't be too complacent. Obviously, you're smiling at the demise of the Tories, and that is real. And I think that as an organisation...
I'm smiling, Mark, in quite admiration for Matthew to be able to hold his hands up and call out his own party as well. It's
someone has to.
Nothing but admiration.
And you're enjoying this moment of Tory failure, and it is real, it is palpable, and I'm not sure there's a way back for them. But what about your own party? Forget about the Conservatives. The real threat to Labour are Reform UK.
I also think the Greens present a credible threat on the left as well.
And Jeremy Corbyn.
And Jeremy Corbyn. So Labour is being eaten away at both sides here. They have a huge number of MPs on very shallow majorities. You know, I always like to say that, you know, a scale of how ridiculous this sort of the scale of Labour's reach is, that, you know, we've got constituencies like Poole, which has the richest postcode outside London, has a Labour MP by 20 votes. Starmer can't keep this coalition together. What this reshuffle showed, though, Mark, is that he has lent much more heavily into a rightward lean as well. The appointment of Shabana Mahmood, nobody could say that, you know, someone who calls for the chemical castration of sex offenders is not a social liberal in that regard. Going to the Home Office, taking over from Yvette Cooper, is an indication that Starmer and Morgan McSween want to take the fight to Nigel Farage on his own terms. And look, Farage made the running yesterday. There's no doubt about that. You know, he looked and sounded like a Prime Minister in waiting. I would question whether reform could be ready for government in 2 years or not. But there's also a question now of, is this potential destabilisation from the Labour deputy leadership contest? You know, we've got David Lammy now as Deputy Prime Minister. The last thing, you know, Starmer needs is the left in the Labour Party to put up, or indeed the soft left, to put up an alternative figure who will then go around the broadcast studios with their own mandate, their own platform for the party membership, which is, in times of being in government, is ridiculous, in my opinion. Rubbishing the government's record is what they're doing. Labour doesn't get into government very often, but they are excellent when they're in at undermining their own achievements as well.
God, you nearly gave me a heart attack that they were excellent. I was like, God.
Well, I tell you something, we're going to talk about Labour in government next, because I want to ask, will the new Home Secretary stop the boats? That's next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to the Home of Common Sense Talk. Let me tell you, in exactly 10 minutes' time, Richard Tice, live on the show from Reform UK Party Conference. Don't miss that. And don't forget, at 9 o'clock, the monologue is back. My Dolan Dispatch, my first Dolan Dispatch since my return to Talk Radio. And let me tell you what a privilege and a joy it is to be back on Talk. Thank you for having me. With me in the studio, Mike Indian, political commentator, and the former Conservative advisor, Matthew Goodwin Freeman. Mike Indian, will the new Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, stop the boats?
She's going to have a tougher time than Yvette Cooper did, because the figures aren't going in the right direction. If anyone can do it, I think it can be her. She's prepared, I think, to countenance many options that would not have crossed Cooper's mind in that regard. However, at the moment, I don't see the chances of a meaningful reduction in the small boats figures in the next 12 months or so, and I think that's what people will be looking for in that regard.
Would you like to apologise to my viewers and listeners as a supporter of this government that the Prime Minister has not smashed the gangs? Do you want to say sorry?
Well, first of all, I don't speak on behalf of the government, and I think I want to judge them as a voter against the same standards. Nobody wants to see hundreds of people a day crossing the channel in small boats, you know, whether
There's
you're
a few Labour backbenchers that do, I think.
A few, but most people don't. I mean, it's not a good look. And the problem again needs to begin with not just smashing the gangs, but also looking at the reasons, the pull and push factors of why they are.
But smashing the gangs was a lie, wasn't it? You'll never smash the gangs.
Well, it was a slogan. It was the same as it was stop the boats, and it needs substance behind it. And we saw one of Cooper's last acts in the Home Office was to simplify the asylum appeals process, which any political wing would say is overly complicated. The UK has to ensure that it's compliant at the moment with various international legal standards. This will present difficult questions for Keir Starmer, who is a human rights lawyer himself. He believes in these frameworks. Shabana Mahmood, I think, will ask difficult questions, and it's reported in the Times this morning that she has done this as well. I think she's prepared to take a harder line. The question is how much scope and rein Downing Street will give her to pursue that. Given she's quite close to Morgan McSweeney, I think she'll be able to go a lot further and may consider options that Yvette Cooper wouldn't have.
Well, does this tell you, Matthew, that Starmer is going to shift right and seek to out-Farage Nigel Farage with the appointment of a figure in the Home Office who is definitely far to the right of Yvette Cooper?
You can't out-Farage. There is only one Nigel Farage. It's like having Diet Coke versus full-fat Coke.
It's Coke Zero.
It's not. Well, that's maybe the Conservative Party. It's not going to happen. Nigel Farage is a political phenomena who understands comms better than anybody. This Labour government have proven that they don't. I mean, we had the mini reshuffle to start off with phase 2 of a comms team. I mean, thank God, let's actually hear what the government's doing. And now we've had the major reshuffle that I presume will be announcing phase 3 on Monday. You asked if Labour are going to smash the gangs. No. There's the answer. Politicians never give you a straight answer. No, they're not. Labour are not going to smash the gangs, because every time you smash one gang, another gang takes their place.
Sure, but I also was asking if they're going to stop the boats, and you know as well as I do.
Yeah, we messed up. We messed up on stopping the boats. We didn't. We tried to push through the Rwanda plan, which did have an impact. As much as people say the Rwanda plan didn't work, it was no flights or whatever, we saw a 33% drop in people crossing the channel because they were scared of going to Rwanda.
And the Irish Taoiseach
exactly even said that we want to deport people back into Britain who were coming to Ireland instead. So the Rwanda plan did start working without any flights off, but the point is, judge Labour by their track record. They said that they would smash the gangs and that they'd stop these boats. We have had 29,000 people cross this year alone, over 50,000 since the Labour government. The worst year in history for people crossing the Channel. They are going in the wrong direction, and that's because on day 1 they scrapped the Rwanda plan. On day 2 they said they'd smash the gangs, and what are we now, day 300 and something, and they still haven't done it. This one-in, one-out deal is a facade. It's one out 50 in, because the French have only said, oh, we'll only take 50 a week. The devil is in the detail. And it is possible to do this, right? It is possible to do this. It takes gumption and it takes strength to tell the civil service, we are the elected politicians, you're going to do as we say. And so that's why I think actually Shabana Mahmood going into the Home Office makes no difference. Because yes, she might have more strength of character than Yvette Cooper, but it's the civil service who provide the options. And if the civil service say, oh no, you can't do that, then they're going to say it to whoever the minister is. And we saw that with Priti Patel, to Suella Braverman. We've seen it before. It is the civil service who run this country, and that's why we need a radical shake-up and to cut them back.
Mike Indian, if we know one thing about Sir Keir Starmer, it's that he's highly ambitious. He wanted power, he's achieved it, and he certainly wants to keep it. He won't go away quietly.
He's going to lead Labour into the next election if he gets his way.
If he gets his way. And I think he knows, because he's not a stupid man. I disagree with most of his policies, but he's not a stupid man. And his calculation will be clear that he needs to tackle illegal immigration, or he's got no chance. So do you see him changing tack and taking a more robust approach to the boats, potentially exiting ECHR and even tearing up the Human Rights Act in order to save his own premiership?
I don't see him doing that, because it goes against his... Keir Starmer may say he's not political, but he is someone who, he's very strong views on international law, human rights. It would go against his basic instincts to do that.
If it meant staying as Prime Minister? I mean, this is a guy that's ruthless.
I mean, he has
with
been
no principle. He's had more U-turns than Lewis Hamilton.
I think his principles in this are very clear. I cannot see this Labour government wanting to exit the ECHR or to scrap the Human Rights Act.
Well, you've got David Blunkett, who's an ex-Home Secretary, saying that we should look at the ECHR.
You should indeed, but I don't know how.
And Jack Straw.
He won't do it.
But it's easy for these guys to say it when they're out of Parliament and the House of Lords as well. I think at this point in time, Starmer wanted... His natural instinct was to bring the fight to Reform UK and the increasing nativist populist narrative in this country as Labour. Morgan McSweeney, Shabana Mahmood's line is they need to be firmer on it, embrace more of the social conservatism that pervades Labour's core vote.
The problem is, Keir Starmer is a lawyer not a leader, and he will do everything by what he thinks the law should guide him to do. And so there is no way that he's going to leave the ECHR. There's no way he's going to take these decisions that we want to. I mean, you know, people in the Labour Party and the backbenchers have saying maybe we need to start looking at it. Could we reform it? Well, Italy have just gone to the ECHR asking for reforms and got a big fat no. So it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So I'm really sorry to anybody who thinks that Labour can still, you know, right this. Labour will not be the party that takes the lead on illegal immigration. It will not be. The only party at the moment who is talking anything about illegal immigration and an actual plan for dealing with it is Reform.
Indeed. Listen, do you think that Keir Starmer will survive until the next election, Mike?
I think the odds are pretty good at the moment because there isn't a clear alternative. I mean, the only...
Angela Rayner, Wes Streeting?
Well, Angela Rayner's got to go off and lick her wounds for the next 12 months. I do think she'll be back in some form, and I think it was interesting you saw the Prime Minister's handwritten note to her, which I cannot recall a time when a Prime Minister has handwritten a note to a departing minister.
Clearly the printer wasn't working on Fridays.
Which, you know, if you think about the pressures on his day, he took the time to sit down and do that, which for Keir Starmer is an unusual human touch, I would say. I think Wes Streeting wants it, but I'm not so sure that he's going to have the bandwidth to run against him. The key thing is going to be whoever takes the deputy leader position as well, because they can appoint an interim, but if he ends up with a critic from the soft left who hasn't got a cabinet position, then they're free to go around and do what Tom Watson did to Jeremy Corbyn, which is hamstring the leadership in that way as well. And this is the advantage and the disadvantage of having two elected leadership posts inside the party. But if it's right, they'll drag Starmer back to a common sense position and help sense check him about where he's going.
Last word briefly, Matthew.
I think Angela Rayner, to quote the Terminator, will be back. She's going to go off for 12 months, as you said, lick her wounds, and probably start being a bit of a pain in the backbenchers, and I can see it happening.
Hasta la vista, baby. Boys, really enjoyed our conversation. Mike Indian and Matthew Goodwin-Freeman do return to the studio presently if you can. Next up, Richard Tice, Deputy Leader of Reform, live on the show.
It is a huge loss. Angela Rayner is an incredibly effective politician. She's spearheaded many of Labour's most popular bills, most popular policies. She's also very good at mediating within the party as well and making sure that that broad church can operate. But at the same time, it's also right that after the report was handed down and it found that she did breach the ministerial code, she was very quick to leave. And I think that is something that we're seeing from ministers when they resign in this government. It happens very quickly. There's no clinging on.
the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Richard Tice, the Deputy Leader of Reform UK, is with us in just a moment. At 9 a.m, it is my first Dolan dispatch since my return to Talk. The monologue is back, and I'm not pulling my punches. That is appointment to view and listen at 9 a.m. in just 15 minutes' time. But first, appointment to listen comes from Stephen, who is in France right now, because this show and this channel is global. Stephen, welcome to the show. Who's going to win the next election?
Mark, good morning.
Good morning.
Great show. I honestly think it's going to be a hung parliament. I'll tell you why. I was a former Conservative councillor. I'm now a member of National Rally in France, and there are big parallels between France and the UK. We've got an economic crisis here in France. We've got political turmoil with no majority, and I think the UK is heading for the same situation, a hung parliament, and that's going to be bad.
Well, that is a worry. A hung parliament would be the worst of all worlds, would it not? How do you think that can be prevented?
Well, I think Reform are doing well. I was a former member of Reform, and the reason why I've not renewed my membership is because I think Reform are going too soft, like abolishing the two-child benefit cap, and also trying to attract Bitcoin hodlers with a preferential 10% tax will drive inflation for working people in the UK. So there's some policies I'm not happy with that Reform are bringing in. In France, the National Rally are doing the right thing. They're really going to crack down on illegal immigrants and immigration generally.
Well, of course, that's the focus. Do you think things will be resolved politically in France? What's going to happen in the days, weeks and months ahead?
Well, chatting to the people here, they all know there's some strikes coming. They think there's going to be another like Gilets jaunes protests this winter, or several of them. I think there's a general disquiet, so we're a little bit ahead of the UK on that curve. They're sort of trapped. They want the benefits because they spend so much on public services, but at the end of the day, nobody wants their bit of the pie to be cut. So I think the UK is in the same boat with the welfare. You've got growing dependence on PIP and other welfare benefits, and no politician wants to say they're going to cut them. So both countries are heading to an IMF situation, I think.
Stephen, that is the worry. Thank you so much. Your call from France. Have a good morning. So many messages coming in on the text. First of all, do you feel sorry for Angela Rayner as she ceases to be Deputy Prime Minister? Gary says, no, Mark, I'm not sorry for Rayner. She never gave anyone else sympathy, so it couldn't have happened to a nicer person. Kevin in Southampton, no sympathy for Rayner whatsoever. She tried to avoid tax and got found out. Simple as that. Good riddance. And how about this from Craig in Lancashire? Absolutely not. No sympathy for Rayner. You reap what you sow, and good riddance to her. Also, I now hope that her trying to fiddle her way to 3 pads means that she will struggle to pay for it now. Well, that is very possible, because the front page of the Telegraph have a pretty troubling story for Rayner. She may struggle to pay for her brand new holiday home, given the fact that her income has dropped by about 40%. The headline, Angela Rayner may have to sell Hove flat after losing her job. Cliff enjoyed my interview with Sir John Redwood. I was asking Sir John, are the Tories dead? Are they toast? Is it game over the Tories? It's my view that it absolutely is. I think that there are so many people watching this show and who listen to this show that will never forgive the Conservatives for the Boris wave, for net zero, for the woke takeover of our public institutions, and for the highest taxes since the war. A man that hopes to fix all of that in 2, 3, 4 years' time is the Deputy Leader of Reform UK, Richard Tice. Richard, welcome to Talk.
Thank you very much. Very good to hear you and to discuss this incredible conference we're having, Mark, here in Birmingham. An amazing first day yesterday. Nigel full of enthusiasm, lighting up with energy. The thousands and thousands of members and delegates here. And it's nice to have a bit of light at the end of the dark tunnel of socialism that we're currently suffering and struggling under.
I can't disagree, but it's one thing, isn't it, Richard, to win an election. At the moment, the polls are going your way. It's another to deliver. You've built businesses. You know that it takes time. It requires vision, a great product, and a great team. Reform doesn't have any of those things yet, does it?
We've got all of those things, Mark. Where have you been hiding your head under a bushel for the last couple of years?
Well, you've got a handful of MPs, Richard. Who's going to be Chancellor?
And
who's going to be Home Secretary?
Patience is a virtue, dear chap. We've got over 800 councillors. We won 10 councils against all of the odds. Just this week, I produced a detailed policy how to save between 6 and 8% of all annual council expenditure by stopping the rip-off and the underperformance of the local government pension schemes. I'll be talking later about other savings that can be made. I've been proven right on things like the wasteful spending by the Bank of England of tens of billions of taxpayers' cash. I've been proven right by the OBR and the Climate Change Committee on the cost of net stupid zero that we would scrap, and many other things besides. So, yeah, and we've got a great team. Here's the exciting thing, Mark. We've got loads of people from the world of business, successful, who are coming to us and say, I've never been involved in politics before. The country's in a terrible state. I think I can help. And people of great wisdom and experience, and that's why we're energised. And that's what Nigel talked about, Zia talked about, I'll be talking about. And we're very enthused. There's another couple of key messages that Nigel put out, very serious messages yesterday. First is that our brave, brilliant veterans, whether from Northern Ireland or elsewhere, we will stop this ridiculous lawfare being assailed and assaulted against our veterans. We confirm that. And Nigel also confirmed that a reform government would immediately prescribe the Muslim Brotherhood that many other countries around the world, including in the Middle East, our partners in the Middle East, have already prescribed. And I can tell you they are delighted by that confirmation.
Most definitely, that sounds like a very good policy. But can I ask you about the detail? For example, half of the reform support comes from, disgruntled Labour voters. Then you've got the Tories that have had enough of the Conservatives, and in my view, rightly so. But how do you serve those two very different political constituencies, half of whom want big states and half of whom want very dry, Thatcherite economic policies?
Simple, Mark. By common sense policies that voters can see from whatever party or no party, actually, do you know what? It's going to make them better off. It's going to reduce the bills by scrapping net stupid zero. It's going to make our public services work better. It's going to stop mass, cheap, low-skilled immigration consuming our housing and public services and suppressing British wages. A party that's going to stop the boats that infuriates people across the whole spectrum of the population.
Yeah.
That's what people want. Good old-fashioned common sense from people who've got a track record of doing things properly and a track record of success.
Who's going to be Chancellor, you or Zia Youssef?
Oh, Mark, we all serve at the boss's pleasure. Those decisions are for when an election is won. Let's focus on winning that election. And Nigel said yesterday, get ready for an election in 2027. It's hard to see this chaos continuing all the way through until mid-2029. The bond markets are rebelling. The cost of government debt on 30-year debt is at almost a 30-year high, hit 5.75%. That's wreaking havoc on the government's finances as the bond markets apply what they call a moron premium to the current Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, from complaints. Or was it accounts? I'm not sure.
Do you think it was right for your boss, your leader, Nigel Farage, to avoid an extra £40,000 on stamp duty for his Clacton home?
Look, I'm not Nigel's tax advisor. I've no idea what you're talking about. What I do know is that
this is Reform
Angela Rayner
UK sleaze, isn't it?
Angela
Here
Rayner,
we go again.
Absolute twaddle. Angela Rayner promised one thing. She promised to eradicate sleaze and have a government of integrity. She was always calling for people to resign, and it turned out she was just another hypocrite, and that's the reality. So look, we're making great progress, and that's why we're leading in the polls.
Do you not think that it seems to be one rule for Angela Rayner, who has to pay stamp duty, but Nigel Farage doesn't?
Everybody pays stamp duty at the appropriate rate. It's quite clear that she didn't. She ignored the legal advice that she was given, and they're trying to make us scapegoats of some poor conveyancing firm in Kent.
Richard, are there Tories you wouldn't accept? You've obviously had Nadine Dorries, who's quite a scalp. I think more defections to come. Are some people going to be refused entry into the party, those glorified Liberal Democrats?
Well, obviously we don't want the wokies and the wetties that, frankly, don't believe in our principles and our values, in saving our great nation, in stopping the boats, in detaining and deporting, in removing foreign criminals, blocking up our jails. All of these are key things that'll make us better off, and many people in the Labour Parliamentary Party, frankly, just weren't up for that.
Richard, I know you've got to go. It's a real treat to see you again. Enjoy the rest of the conference. What time are you on stage?
Give or take 3:30.
Brilliant. Well, that will be appointment to view. We'll be covering it live on Talk. Richard, we'll catch up soon. My thanks to the Deputy Leader of Reform UK, Richard Tice. Your reaction, 03444991000. Are they ready for government? That is the million-dollar question. So many texts coming in. And let me tell you that at 9 o'clock, it is the first Dolan dispatch since my return to Talk. The monologue is back, and I'm not pulling my punches. How about this from Mark in Norfolk? Dear Mark, the nation is desperate for growth, and that must focus around small business. The problem is Labour hates small business and ambitious people. National insurance, planning delays, tax and daft employee rights will stifle growth and build resentment across the private sector. Remember that sector, the private sector, it's the only one that pays for everything. Faffing around, placating tube drivers and a wasteful NHS is not taking us anywhere. Mark, I'm not prone to applause on this show, but I'm actually going to just applaud your brilliant text, which makes a lot of sense, and I wish you were the Chancellor of the Exchequer. Mark, the question of are reform ready for government, what your question should be is, are Labour a fit party to carry on? Now, what's interesting is that Nigel Farage is talking about the possibility of the governing Labour Party collapsing with perhaps a third of their MPs going off and defecting to Jeremy Corbyn's breakaway party, which would mean that Starmer might lose that working majority. It'd be impossible to govern, and you could have an election in 2027. One question is, would Reform UK be ready for power? It's one thing, is it not, to win an election? It's another thing to actually deliver. Now, we're very, very busy hour to come. We're going to be joined by one of my favourite journalists, the political editor of The Sun on Sunday, who is at the Reform UK conference, and she's giving us the inside track on what's happening within a political insurgent movement that hope to be the leaders of this country in a couple of years' time, perhaps 4 years max. But the Dolan dispatch is coming. Don't go anywhere. I might get in trouble. OK, I've already been cancelled. I might get cancelled again. Don't go anywhere.
How much, ladies and gentlemen, are fish and chips where you come from? We'll go to Jason in Crewe.
Jason from Crewe, fish, chips and peas, £7.50. It's the best chippy in England.
Janice in Leeds, go.
Regarding fish and chips, in Leeds it's between £9.50 and £12.75.
Whitby, how much is fish and chips?
3 of us, fish, chips, peas, I think one of us carry sauce, 3 cans of pop, just short of 70 quid.
£70? That's 23 quid a head, man. Even my maths does that. Very quickly, a voice note. Campbell in Scotland, go.
Up here in Banter, the northeast of Scotland, we can get a fillet and a half of haddock with a regular chips for £8 and 10p, and it's by far and away one of the best chippies I've ever had.
Kenneth in Surrey, fish and chips, go.
Fish and chips in Ascot, about half a mile from where you used to live, will cost you £12 and 60p. Great show. Keep up the good work.
That's why I moved, because you were living there. When was the last time you had fish and chips?
Couple of weeks ago.
How much? Where'd you get it from?
I think it was about 40 quid. It was in the Ivy.
Honestly, you really are. For any of you who think he's a man of the people, I nearly said you're a...
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Shall we do this? I'm Mark Dolan. This is Talk, the home of common sense. And today we are reacting to two of the biggest political stories of the year. The Deputy Prime Minister, three pads Angela Rayner, has stood down in a row over unpaid stamp duty. Rayner's out. Reeves is under pressure. Is this the beginning of the end of the Starmer project? And we know one thing about Angela Rayner, she won't go away quietly. Is she Labour's Boris Johnson? Will she regroup now? Has she been made a martyr of the left? Is she waiting in the wings to take control of the party before the next election? And what about that reshuffle? David Lammy, Deputy Prime Minister, is that the man you want in charge if Starmer falls? And our new Home Secretary goes on pro-Palestine marches. Is this Britain's first anti-Israel Home Secretary? Plus, there is the small matter of the Reform UK party conference. Why does it matter? Well, because at the moment, based upon the polls, Nigel Farage will be Britain's next Prime Minister. Is he ready? Do they have the infrastructure? Do they have the people? Do they have the policies? Do they have the will? Do they have the energy? Is Nigel Farage the answer to Britain's problems? We'll be heading to Reform UK's party conference in Birmingham, and we'll be joined at 9:30 by none other than Mike Graham himself, MG, the titan of Talk, who joins me to give me the inside track on what's happening at Reform, and more importantly, to tell me who said what in the bars last night. So, a very, very busy hour to go. It's Mark Dolan with you all weekend, back tomorrow from 6 till 10. So much to get through. My priority is your view and your opinions. 0344 499 1000. But we'll start with mine. This is my first Dolan dispatch since my return to Talk. Can you believe that these clowns have only been in power for just over a year? We were told, weren't we, that it was the grown-ups back in charge, that we would see dignity and professionalism restored to government, probity, the highest standards, and a government of service, and a government for working people. Well, the foundations of the economy, we were told, were going to be fixed, and it was going to be the most growth-focused government in history. Taxes would not rise, and they were going to smash the gangs. How's that working out for you then? Now, don't get me wrong, I know the Tories were terrible. Don't get me started on the highest taxes since the war, the open borders, the Boris wave, net zero, and the wild COVID overreaction that I was on air in this very studio all those years ago to challenge. So what did we get in the end in July of last year? Well, I said before the election that the Tories are terrible, but Labour will be worse. And here we are. We are now paying an enormous price as a country for the public flogging of the Conservatives. Yes, they deserved it, but now we're in a worse position. So how did things start? Well, we had the freebies scandal. Remember that? Just a few months ago, tickets to Wembley, Taylor Swift, the dresses, the chauffeured cars, the posh accommodation, and Keir Starmer, provably the single greediest member of Parliament, having received gifts of over £100,000. This multi-millionaire former human rights lawyer wouldn't even pay for his own suits and specs. We've had our first female Chancellor, Rachel Reeves. First female Chancellor. Isn't it amazing that we got our first female Chancellor? Well, it turns out she's the worst female Chancellor as well. And she sat in the House of Commons some weeks ago, literally in tears, as she comes to terms with the slow realisation that she has utterly destroyed the British economy with her wicked tax raid on employers, farmers and private schools, and her decision to rob pensioners of the winter fuel allowance. It is a total clown show. We are living our worst nightmare. Growth is down. Investment is down. Business confidence down. Job vacancies down. And the international bond markets have us about as trustworthy as Venezuela. Meanwhile, unemployment is up. Benefit claimants are up. The cost of government borrowing is up. The national debt is up. The illegal boat crossings are up. Inflation is up, up, up. In one short year, they've destroyed the country. Keir Starmer labelled those angry about the Southport triple murder as far right and watched from the sidelines as bereaved mother Lucy Connolly was jailed for an ill-advised post on X, which was swiftly deleted, whilst BBC paedophile Hugh Edwards walked away without a custodial sentence and another £500,000 of our money via the licence fee, which, by the way, has got to go. We gave away British territory, strategically important territory, the Chagos Islands, in a deal that will cost you and I and our kids and our grandkids and our great-grandkids tens of billions of pounds. They've doubled down on net zero, and the £300 a year that we were supposed to be saving on our energy bills has headed into the ether, just like our energy independence and any hope of reviving our industrial economy. You see, you can't grow an economy without cheap energy. You can't make anything without cheap energy. And who is the idiot that survived that reshuffle yesterday? Ed Miliband, Red Ed, who is probably the most dangerous figure within this government. So it goes on. They've sent 16,000 millionaires running for the hills, wealth creators who have escaped Britain, with gloating lefties not realising that the rest of us will have to cover the taxation that they once paid. Keir Starmer was going to smash the gangs. Do you remember that? I'm going to smash the gangs. I'm going to... My father was a toolmaker. I'm going to smash the gangs. And I'm here for working people. I don't know what a working person is. Who are working people? I don't know. I'm going to smash the gangs. That was what got him elected, allegedly. But illegal migrant crossings are up, having ditched Rwanda, which he promised to do, and I quote, even if it works. This is a guy that was elected on a promise to scrap a policy even if it works, which, by the way, ask the Irish, Rwanda was working, and our Prime Minister scrapped it. It goes on. The now ex-Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, battled in court against the will of ordinary Brits to keep the Bell Hotel in Epping open for people who have entered the country illegally from another safe country, France. Yvette Cooper, by the way, a sour-faced political journeyman with all the charm of a dead piranha, who is now in the Foreign Office. May God help us. Meanwhile, we have a Home Secretary in Shabana Mahmood, who's been photographed holding a Free Palestine placard at one of those so-called peace marches. You know, the ones where anti-Semitic slogans are chanted with impunity, leaving British Jews afraid to leave their homes or walk to synagogues or school in their religious apparel. So, an anti-Israel British Home Secretary. What a time to be alive. What have we done? We are paying a mighty price for the punishment beating of the Conservatives. Meanwhile, that clueless numpty, David Lammy, who thinks women can grow a cervix and who called Donald Trump a Nazi, is our Deputy Prime Minister. Lammy is the second in charge, folks. Just imagine that. What a plan for Britain. If Starmer falls, it's Prime Minister Lammy. May God help us. Meanwhile, we've got a lack of talent within the Labour backbenches, which is why this reshuffle was such a disaster. And under Starmer, we are a global laughingstock when it comes to free speech, with one of our greatest comedy writers, Father Ted creator Graham Linehan, arrested by 5 armed cops for effectively saying that a bloke in a dress is a bloke. We are turning into North Korea, but without the fancy military parades. What a clown show, which takes me to our former Deputy Prime Minister and Sharon Stone tribute act, Angela Rayner. The woman who once labelled the Conservatives as scum. Well, take a look in the mirror, dear. This shamefully duplicitous figure in Angela Rayner, a faux socialist and cosplay pleb, resigns from government having avoided paying sufficient tax on the 3rd property that she calls home. But is it home? We never know where she lives. And we didn't know where she lived back in the 2010s when there was a major mystery surrounding her council tax. I guess like Kirsty Allsop and Phil Spencer, she's always on the move. Jeremy Clarkson rightly pointed out on X yesterday that Rayner's alleged heroic journey from rags to riches was bankrolled exclusively by the taxpayer as she went from public sector job to public sector job into Parliament. This wild hypocrite and queen of double standards represents everything that is wrong with this pathological, dishonest, sclerotic Labour government. And just think, folks, we've got another 4 years of this. Meanwhile, Reform UK, roaring ahead in the polls, are having their party conference this weekend. With another Labour government about as likely as Elton John growing back his natural hair, are Reform the answer? Labour won't win. The Tories are toast. Are Reform the answer? Is Nigel Farage the real deal? Is he cut from the same cloth as Churchill, Thatcher, and dare I say it, Donald Trump? Time will tell. I don't know. I'm not sure any of us know. I'm not sure Nigel knows. But Reform do have a clear message this weekend. They want to save Britain. The question is, by 2029, how much of the Britain that we know and love will be left to save? Let's get reaction to the big political stories of the day. It's Rayner and it's Reform, and it's like Christmas Day for political nerds. I'm delighted to welcome one of my favourite journalists on this matter, the political editor of The Sun on Sunday, Kate Ferguson. Hello, Kate.
Hi, good to be with you.
Great to have you on the show. Let's start with Rayner. How damaging long-term is her departure to Keir Starmer, do you think?
Well, look, I think it is really damaging. It's because of two things. That story will stick in the mind's eye of the public, I think. Here you had a kind of firebrand left-winger, a powerful Labour deputy who had railed against people dodging their taxes, really attacked the Tories for their own hypocrisy, double standards and ministerial propriety. And then she's had to go. She's had to quit just a year into government for doing the same thing. Failing to pay her taxes, then it seems, being a bit misleading in that teary-eyed interview with Beth Rigby on Sky, saying she followed all of the advice and had, implying she had really disclosed all her financial interests. It turned out she hadn't, and the ethics chief said she was at fault there, which is why she had to go. So I think, broadly, I think it will stick because it's the kind of thing that voters get very angry about. And also, crucially, it's quite easy to understand. Here is a deputy PM, Labour leader, who failed to pay her taxes. We all have to pay our taxes. Yeah. Taxes are rising. Labour rose them last year in the budget. Guess what? There's a budget on November 26th. They're going to go up again. So it's that double standards hypocrisy. And then a bit more drier, really, but politically for Keir Starmer, this is also a problem because it speaks to this idea of kind of chaos within his front ranks. He's already had a cabinet minister on the morning round today, Darren Jones, newly promoted, who's had to deny that this reshuffle has been caused by chaos, that there's kind of disorder in the heart of government. And so that is politically tricky for the PM.
And of course, Angela Rayner won't go away quietly, will she, Kate? There was never any love lost between her and Sir Keir Starmer in the first place, and she'll be focused on revenge, surely.
Angela Rayner was a powerful deputy and a really still powerful figure in the Labour Party. Her nickname, Red Rayner. She's from more of the left-wing tradition of the party, hugely popular with trade unions. This is a bit geeky, but people like me who follow those trade unions on Twitter and speak to people in those unions, you'll see they really launched a big Twitter offensive to say how much they liked her, how sad they are to see her go. So the big question here is, I think we can expect Angela to go away for a little while, lick her wounds, probably take a long holiday somewhere. But is she going to return to be a kind of powerful left-wing voice and critic on Labour's backbenchers? If she decides to step into that role, that will be very difficult for the PM.
Most definitely. And what about the reshuffle? What are your headlines from that reshuffle, Kate? Because I just wonder whether it's a vote of no confidence in the efforts, for example, of Yvette Cooper in the Home Office.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's no other way to view it, to be honest. That reshuffle, I hear, was shaped around moving Yvette. They wanted to move her out of that Home Office brief and bring Shabana into that brief. So how do you find a kind of neat way to do that with Yvette? You do not want to make an enemy of Yvette Cooper. She also is a powerful figure and woman in the Labour Party, a lot of allies, popular among the backbenchers. So they move her into Foreign Secretary. Always a nice job for a cabinet minister to have, you know, nice plush plum job, the kind of thing you give when you're trying to nicely move someone sideways. You manage to get David Lammy, you kind of prize him out of that room because you to really prize ministers out of that plush Foreign Secretary room, but you bribe him with this deputy PM post, really, and you've done a kind of reshuffle, but you've got the person you want in as Home Secretary, and I think it signals that they know they need to really step up on stopping the boats.
Most definitely. I mean, I was just discussing that with a Labour supporter earlier in the show, saying that Keir Starmer is not a deeply principled man. He's had more U-turns than Lewis Hamilton. So he knows that if he pivots regarding illegal immigration, that gives him a lifeline. So do you see him taking some quite significant steps in that direction? And will his new Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, help him to do just that?
Well, Shabana's got this reputation of being a straight talker, but also of being willing to make controversial decisions. So, for example, when she was Justice Secretary, she was letting prisoners out early because we were running out of prison spaces. That is hugely unpopular and controversial. So what does she do at the same time? She talks about castrating pedos. You know, she's got a kind of political nous to her. But, you know, the thing with the boats crisis and the illegal immigration crisis is it's not just about personality. You're not going to stop the boats with kind of tough vibes. You're going to have to really grapple with policy. Are you willing to circumvent certain kind of international legal conventions? Are you willing to deport people back to potentially not very nice countries where they came from? What kind of housing are you going to give them here? Are you going to give them benefits? I really think that the borders issue will only be resolved if you start really kind of grappling with that thorny policy.
Kate, I know you've got to go tomorrow. Can't wait for tomorrow's paper. You are the political editor of The Sun on Sunday. You're going to have so much juicy gossip from the Reform UK conference and brilliant analysis. Before you go, I know you have to run, but what is the atmosphere like up there? Is it as sort of excited and as positive as people are suggesting?
I mean, it's almost triumphalist here, really. I've been to quite a few party conferences in my time, and when it comes to Nigel Farage, I used to go to his UKIP conferences back in the day. This is certainly a bigger crowd. It is a younger crowd. You've got lots of those kind of lads in their 20s and 30s. Farage is talking about potentially being in power in 2 years' time, and they really think they've got it within their grasp. You know, they think it's chaos in Labour, the Tories are dead, and here they are with their kind of big cheerful base around them, and they think number 10 is just, you know, months and months away, tantalisingly close.
Kate, lovely to meet you. I really look forward to our next on-air adventure. My thanks to the political editor of The Sun on Sunday, Kate Ferguson. Do check out The Sun tomorrow because it will have some major political scoops, as it always does. And I'm delighted to say I'll be on air to cover those scoops because I'm here from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. tomorrow as well. It's so good to be back. I've got my voice back. I've missed you, and what a thrill. We've got a very busy 40 minutes to go. Next up, folks, we're going to have a look at what's happening in Reform and within the party machine, back to Birmingham, and at 9:30, the broadcasting titan that is Mike Graham live on the show, and I'm going to find out what happened last night.
listen, I think anyone can change their opinions and their minds, and I hope that's what she's done. I hope she's joined for conviction and not for political headlines. I am sceptical because she was, as you say, the author of the online safety bill, something that Reform and myself are very much against. We don't believe there should be any censorship of freedom of speech whatsoever. And don't forget, I think she was health minister in 2020 and was a big champion of lockdowns, which caused huge was a financial disaster.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Many thanks for all of your comments and very kind comments about my return to Talk. It is a thrill to be back at the home of common sense. Thank you for having me. This from Chris. Newsflash, Angela Rayner to appear on Kirsty and Phil's hit series Love It or List It. Well, the Telegraph are reporting that Angela Rayner may have to sell her £800,000 holiday pad in Hove after seeing her income drop by around 40%. Let's now go back to Reform UK's party conference in Birmingham and a very increasingly high-profile figure within Reform UK, the Westminster City Councillor for Reform, Layla Cunningham. Layla, welcome to Talk.
Hi, Mark. How are you?
I'm very well. What's the most important thing that Reform would do if elected?
I think it would shake up, number one, it would stop illegal migration, so it would take us out of the ECHR. And I know that Nigel believes in economic growth and growing the private sector to fund the public sector. And so he would bring out policies that encourage economic growth, and he would look to cut spending in ways that makes it more efficient. We're not about spending more money, we're about spending money in the right way.
Indeed. I do wonder, though, Layla Cunningham, whether the support for Reform might have echoes of the Labour Party's support. Now, of course, Labour has, the metropolitan areas, which are sort of socially progressive, and then you have the sort of northern working class red wall. Are Reform going to have trouble riding two political horses with perhaps voters in the southeast who want Thatcherism and a very dry economic set of policies, low tax, that kind of thing, whilst the sort of working class northern areas will be looking for big state, big welfare, and, for example, the axing of the two-child benefit cap? Can you square those two circles?
Yeah, I mean, you saw that we squared it in the local elections. We won very strong Labour strongholds and very strong Conservative strongholds because, Mark, I don't think it's about being Labour or Conservatives anymore. Even the working class, they work, and they see all their money go to the government, and they're not getting anything for that. They don't see police on the streets. They can't get an NHS appointment. And then they hear on the news or right by them that an illegal migrant is staying at a hotel, and we're paying $8 million a day for that. And that doesn't make you Conservative or Labour. That makes you just someone who's had enough and who feels completely ignored. People consistently vote for lower migration, and they're not getting it. And we've got the highest tax burden since World War II, and I don't feel anyone feels that their public services are better for it.
Layla, clearly what Reform wants to do, they want to cut taxes, they want to stop the boats, they want to boost industry and get the economy growing, which are all laudable goals, but that's going to cost money, particularly tax cuts and stopping the boats. It's quite likely that in 4 years' time, the economy will be shot to pieces. So are you not worried that there simply won't be the economic and financial firepower with which to deliver this agenda?
I don't think that's true, Mark, because the problem is the conversation always focuses on either more taxes and nobody focuses on cutting spending. So, for instance, I was a Crown prosecutor in London, and we had the CPS has a huge sustainability department. We're lawyers with computers. We do not need a sustainability department. Yeah. And yes, I think a lot of governments have shied away from cutting spending, but that needs to come into the discussion. I mean, we spent 40 billion on the NHS, I think, in the past 4 years, and results are not any better. In fact, they're worse. So I think we need to shift the conversation from raising taxes to how we're going to cut spending. And that doesn't mean cutting essential services at all. It actually means making them more efficient.
And I agree with you. Look, I think the elephant in the room is the fact that this country lives beyond its means. And whilst Rachel Reeves looks at raising taxes, it's quite clear what she needs to do is cut public spending, but her party won't allow her to do that. But I'm not sure that your leadership are that supportive of cutting spending, given the fact that if in power, you'll scrap the two-child benefit cap. So how can you have a policy like that whilst also cutting spending?
You can, because fertility rates are down in this country, right? And we are essentially a country of family and country. And we want to do everything we can to support people to grow their family. And that would mean cutting that, increasing that benefit. And it would also mean more homegrown, because house building, because you know that fertility rates and people having children is related to home ownership. I don't think we should always look at cutting taxes at home. So the fuel tax allowance for pensioners or the two-child benefit. We can cut taxes. Labour's sending 12 billion abroad for green initiatives in foreign aid. Why are we doing that? We always help your home first, the people at home. So there are ways we can cut tax and still maintain those in need. You know, the great thing about England is that we want to give you the tools to succeed financially and in business, but there's always a fallback if you don't. But that fallback can't be such a wide net that people choose not to work. And that's what you're having now. And Mark, the conversation always focuses on the very rich. How can we tax them more? Or the very poor, how can we get them more benefits? But nobody focuses on the middle, that working class middle, who are working really hard and actually pay for everything and are being squeezed to the max. And that's really the people that we need to take care of and are being ignored.
Do you think Nigel Farage needs to ease up on the showbiz, the TikTok videos and the photo ops?
Why? It's great.
To demonstrate a message that he's serious about government. We had Dame Andrea Jenkins, who I'm a big fan of, and she's a friend of mine, but, you know, singing on stage in a glittery dress. That doesn't really look like a party that's serious about government, does it?
I think you're wrong, because I think British people, you know, that we're a fun nation. You know, we're the nation of humour, of fun, of entertainment. Why not? Why does politics have to be boring? And in fact, because of Nigel's success on TikTok, so many you cannot imagine how many 16, 17, 18-year-olds I've met at this conference. And I know when I was 16, 17, 18, I had no interest in politics. I just wanted to have fun or play basketball. So we're actually engaging the younger generation into politics and caring about their country. And I think that could only be a good thing. And I thought she was great, Andrea.
Well, look, she wrote the song Insomnia, and it kept me awake. And I will say that she got a great singing voice, and she's a very nice lady, so no problem with that at all.
Very nice.
Before you go, two quick ones. I've got lots of viewers and listeners who are supportive of the Reform project, but who are deeply disappointed and saddened that someone like Rupert Lowe, a true Conservative voice, is no longer welcome in the party.
That was before I came into the party. Honestly, I've not had any discussions with anyone. I don't know what happened. I'm sure Nigel and the leadership team, I know, made the right decision. And I can't comment on that because I really don't know.
And listen, before you do go, two quick ones. But first of all, tell me about your day. You'll be listening to Richard Tice in the afternoon. What else is happening for the final day of conference for you?
I'm on a panel at 12:30 on lawlessness, which has been, I've been part of that campaign, which has been really incredibly successful, because people finally are like, yes, people are listening to us. And there's a party that actually wants to address the rising lawlessness of the country. So I'll be speaking on that. And then, you know what's the best part of this is actually meeting all those 16, 17, 18-year-olds. I have teenagers. Some are not so interested in politics, sadly. And I'm in awe of, number one, parents who have brought out children that are so interested in politics at such a young age. My hat's off to them. And meeting them, they're so engaged. And I'm really looking forward to meeting more of those.
What do your teenagers make of your foray into politics? What's your street cred like at home and at school?
So I think their friends send them videos of me, and they're like, Mum, this is so embarrassing, especially the one where I accosted Sadiq Khan. And so some are in it. Some just think, Mum, you're never home, and they don't like that. But they're excited, you know, and I teach them about politics. We talk about it, we disagree, I have kids who are not on the right, don't agree with me politically, but it's fine.
Do you want to give us, I've got to go now, but do you want to give us an exclusive that you're going to run as the Reform mayoral candidate for London?
I'll give you an exclusive if and when I'm asked or selected. I don't know.
Would you like that? Would you like that opportunity?
Listen, I'm born and raised in London, love it with all my heart, raising my kids. You know, my mum's 91, I take full care of her. My whole life is vested in London. So whatever I can do to make London the best city it was before, I'll do it.
You heard it here first. Layla, thank you so much for joining us. Enjoy the rest of conference. Layla Cunningham, Westminster City Council Reform UK, who I predict will be Reform UK's mayoral candidate. Let's see if that happens. Next up, none other than MG himself, the titan of broadcasting that is Mike Graham.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Let's head back to Birmingham. Forget about Nigel Farage and Richard Tice. It's time to speak to someone with real charisma, real profile, a real platform, and real impact. It is the star of Talk, the breakfast show nonetheless. It is the wonderful Mike Graham. MG, what's happening?
Mark, how nice to see you. Well, it's all happening, and it's all happening here. Absolutely. You know what's funny? The funniest thing that's happened so far this morning is I came here yesterday, just after about 4:30 in the afternoon, and there was hordes of protesters outside. You know, the usual, refugees are welcome here lot. They're not here this morning. You know why? They're all still in bed.
Of course they are. And I'm surprised you're up, Mike. Tell me what happened in the bars and nightclubs of Birmingham last night.
Well, listen, there's a great feeling of sort of optimism. People are absolutely thrilled. I met so many different people, many of them from different parts of the world. I met a guy from Monaco who's British. He says there's 5,000 Brits in Monaco who want to vote reform. I met a guy who lives in Gibraltar. It's a kind of an international movement going on here.
Yeah.
I, of course, was relatively sober for me. I went to bed about 2 a.m. Alone. You'll be pleased to know.
Glad to hear that.
Luckily, because otherwise it could have been a bit difficult. We just had a fantastic time. Everybody's really just pumped up because, even some of the journalists that I've seen from places like the Daily Telegraph and the Daily Mail are going, we've never seen a conference like it, because people are actually really into it. You go to a Conservative Party conference, and unless Boris Johnson's there, everybody's falling asleep. A couple of people die at the back row, they don't even notice. Labour Party conference full of, trots arguing with each other. But here, you get Lee Anderson yesterday talking about, wanting to keep Britain great, wanting to make Britain great again, wanting to basically improve on what's going on at the moment because the Labour government is running the country into the ground. And he just said, all I want is for people to come into the world and leave it slightly better than it was when they came. And the country at the moment is failing massively, and I'm afraid it's not going to get any better with David Lammy as a Deputy Prime Minister.
No, the idea that he's our plan B if Starmer falls is deeply worrying, Michael. It's very interesting, isn't it, what is happening at Reform? I had Sir John Redwood on the show earlier, Mike, and the Tories, they don't get it, that it's over.
No, I mean, we saw from Nadine Dorries' piece in the Mail the other day that the Tory party's dead and buried. But when you talk to them, as you say, they don't understand. They still think that they are the de facto right-wing party in this country. And the reason that they're not is because they ceased to be right-wing about 10 years ago, and they've been all about net zero. They've been all about immigration, bringing more and more people in, being sort of globalist. And Reform is the only party, as far as I can tell, who actually understand what people talk about and how they talk and what they say when they're in the pub. Because the political class of this country, i.e. the two main parties, haven't got a clue.
Most definitely. Now, look, Mike, what you and Julia and Ian and everyone on this network does is speaks up for our audience, the unheard in this country, people who are so angry about what the Tories did for 14 years, the open border, net zero, all those issues that you mentioned, highest taxes since the war. So we want things to get better. The issue we've got, isn't it, is it's one thing, Mike, to win an election. It's another thing to deliver. And the worry has to be that if Reform do win with a massive mandate, that they're not equipped, that they're not ready, that they're thwarted by the blob. Is that a concern that's kind of resonating in the kind of corridors of those venues in Birmingham as we speak?
Yeah, because it's certainly a conversation, because I've been saying since about last August that, this government is not going to last until 2029. I just don't see it happening. They're going to self-destruct, and so it would seem that process is beginning. Nigel Farage this week said, I think we'll be ready for an election in 2027, which is only 2 years away. And certainly I've had conversations over the past 24 hours with some senior Reform people, and I've said, if there's an election tomorrow, Reform are going to win it. And they said, well, maybe, but we haven't got enough candidates yet.
Yeah.
And that's a big concern, because they've got to find before May, right? Because there's a whole bunch of local elections coming in May, including in London, including in Wales, in Scotland. The Senedd and the Scottish Parliament. They need to find something like 5,000 candidates between now and May the 1st. That's quite a tall order.
It is, and what they don't want is a bunch of Tory wets, essentially Liberal Democrats in but name only. And so the atmosphere up there is good. And what about Farage itself? Is there a danger, Mike, that it's a one-man band?
I don't think so. I think the longer that they get used to it. I mean, I spoke to some people just as I was walking in this morning. They came to the conference, the Reform conference last year, and they said they only had a tiny sort of audience. It was all very small. They just closed off a little bit of the NEC here in Birmingham. This year, they've got sort of 10,000 people over 2 days. And there's a massive recognition that there's now a team of people. David Bull as the chairman, Richard Tice, of course. We've got Nadine Dorries coming on board now. It is a one-man band to the extent that without Nigel Farage, they wouldn't have got to where they are, no question, because he's an incredibly charismatic figure and loved by everybody here. And the more that it spreads out, and they've done it very cleverly, right? They've been very careful to put all of the building blocks in place. They've got the most fantastic, digital media operation going on, much better than any other political party. They've got a headquarters now down in Millbank in London, in Westminster, which is absolutely state of the art. They've got fundraising. They've got big companies backing them here now as well, right? So that's cutting through.
Yeah.
So I think the point is they're building it, and I think they're building it correctly. Sort of organically, letting it grow, not too quickly. Not getting too many crazy people involved, and just, watching it literally get bigger by the day.
Mike, are they nailed on for victory in 2, 3 or 4 years' time? Or is there anything that could burst the balloon and spoil the party?
I don't think so. honestly, because, you know, funnily enough, the Daily Mail wrote a leader column, their opinion piece on Friday, in which they said, you know, the world has changed and everybody has to recognise it. It's no longer just about the two formerly known as main parties. You know, people are sick to death of politics. They don't believe a word that any Tory or any Labour government minister says, and they want something different. And this is what happened with Donald Trump. You know, I remember back in 2016, I was one of the few people who said, you know, Trump is going to win this. And they were like, well, all the political experts, you know, all the sort of people who supposedly are, you know, chin-stroking gurus that appear on BBC chat shows all the time, you know, they got it all wrong. They all got it wrong. You know, I said the same thing about Angela Rayner last week. I said from the day I got back from America, she's gone, she's toast. And all these, you know, political experts would go, oh, well, the thing is, you know, Keir Starmer wants to keep her. I think she'll be okay. She can get through it. No chance, right? Absolutely no chance. And so people look at the Tories and Labour. They're not going to vote for them. Their vote has literally disappeared.
I completely agree with you. So, Mike, what was going on last night? How many bars did you visit, may I ask?
I think it was about 5.
That's pretty tame for you, Mike. You've changed. Your body's a temple. Only 5?
Well, listen, because I knew I had to get up early to speak to you, Mark. So, you know, the worry was, Jeremy Kyle said to me, you know, the nightmare scenario is, he said, you know this hotel we're staying in? I said, yeah. And he said, it's got a casino, and it's open all night. And I was like, oh, crikey. So I did the right thing, because normally in the old days I'd have gone straight to the casino at 2 a.m. and probably lost a bucket load of money. So I thought, no, I've got to get up and be professional in the morning, speak to my old mucker, Mr. Mark Dolan. And so I didn't want to let you down.
Well, listen, you've not let me down, and my viewers and listeners, our viewers and listeners, delighted to see you in such fine fettle, considering that it was a big night last night, and you managed to put away a couple. But, you know, the thing about you is you've got the constitution of an ox, Mike. One thing, though, I'm a little bit disappointed. You mentioned that you were on your own in your hotel room last night. Okay. Now, I was told that you and Jeremy Kyle were going to bunk up together to save the company money.
Well, you know, this is the funny thing. Apparently, initially we were booked into a twin. Room, which I wouldn't have minded, but Jeremy didn't fancy it. So
now listen,
you know, he's had so many children. You know.
Well, that's the problem. Yeah.
Sorry, good.
Yeah, no, well, exactly. His domestic situation is complex, to say the least. But here's the thing, Mike.
Very complex. Worse than Angela Rayner.
So here's the next question. Where is Jeremy Kyle?
Well, I left him this morning. I went and had a cup of coffee with him while he was having breakfast, because Jeremy's once again on the stage today, kicking off around about 10:30, 11 o'clock. So he's the master of ceremonies again. And let me tell you, yesterday we were literally being treated like rock stars. We couldn't get out of that conference centre because everybody wanted pictures with us. You know, we did a hit with you guys around about sort of 5:30 or something like that, with Peter Cardwell. And, you know, this crowd gathered, and suddenly there we were with people saying, oh, we love talk, we love what you do, can we have a picture? It was fantastic. So he's doing that. I've got a panel, funnily enough, the same one that Layla Cunningham's on. I'm hosting that at 12:30, and it's all about lawless Britain. I've already got a plan for it. I'm going to say the question before the House is Britain lawless? And I'm just going to go yes and get up and walk off.
Well, exactly. It's the shortest conversation, isn't it, that you're going to have? I mean, when you have a security tag on a jar of Nescafe Gold Blend, you know it's over as a country, don't you, Mike?
Seriously. I mean, really, yeah. Well, it's worse than that.
Go on.
I was going to say it's worse than that. I tried to defrost some chicken once in a microwave, and unbeknownst to me, the mother of my children had gone to Lidl's, would you believe, to buy it, and it had a security tag on the chicken, and it went on fire in the microwave because it was made of. I was going, what the hell's going on? And I said, like, why are they putting tags on chicken? It's not real.
Yeah, I mean that's you. I bet you were spitting feathers. That's you stuffed, Mike. Last thing.
Very good. I see what you did there.
I'm here all week, Michael. So good to see you. But last question. What's the plan for tonight? Because you don't have to broadcast tomorrow, so are all bets off this evening?
Yes. Well, I haven't quite decided yet because I haven't seen my dog for a couple of weeks as I was over in America, so I may have to disappear and try and make it down to Sussex. But I'm going to be here for certainly for most of the afternoon.
And of course, back on Monday morning from 6 a.m. I hope.
Definitely, absolutely.
Brilliant. Mike, so great to see you. The king of Talk Radio and, of course, the king of breakfast here at Talk, who is back on Monday. But keep an eye out for lots more gossip from Reform UK Party conference in the hours ahead. Next up, we're going to have a bit of fun. Don't go anywhere.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Folks, we've got a delightful little end to the show now because we're going to go back and choose a random year and be a little nostalgic in a fabulous feature, which, let me tell you, is fronted by Virgin Radio star Steve Denyer, who's with me in the studio. Hello, Steve.
It's so nice to see you again.
Listen, it's great to be back. I knew you from back in the day.
6 years, 7 years ago.
There you go. And I've returned like the prodigal son.
Yeah, we've got loads to catch up.
Well,
happy Christmas, happy Easter.
Well, all of that
The whole
stuff.
thing, the whole thing.
And we're going to now rewind into a year in history, right?
We're going to go back to year 2005, exactly 20 years ago. What was going on? Well, big general election in that year. Tony Blair became the first Labour leader to win 3 consecutive terms. If you remember, it was going bad. The majority was certainly a lot less. Within 2 years, do you remember, it was handed to Gordon Brown. The hangover of the Iraq war, the lack of trust was all kicking in this year. So really, we didn't know it at the time, but, you know, the people were suspecting that Gordon Brown was very unhappy. And, of course, literally within 2 years, it all changed. It was the beginning, really, of the end, wasn't it, for the Labour Party 20 years ago?
Definitely. Hadn't they made an agreement before they won power in 1997 that Tony Blair would hand over power to Gordon Brown, and then it looks like Blair just never came through on that?
Exactly. And also that plan was leaked years and years before, so everybody was a bit kind of waiting for something to happen. They apparently weren't speaking to each other. So about 20 years ago, the atmosphere in number 10 Downing Street, number 11, was absolutely dreadful.
Which is so dysfunctional. I mean, you need number 10 and number 11 to be symbiotic,
yes.
not at war.
It was amazing, actually, that it lasted as long as it did.
Yeah.
But that was going on. Charles and Camilla got married in this year. Now, obviously, in the past week, we've been talking about the anniversary of Diana's death. That was in '97, and Camilla's reputation was just zero.
She was the homewrecker, wasn't she?
Wasn't she? And it was year 2000 that the Queen was first pictured actually talking to Camilla. But 2005, they got married. It was a civil ceremony. Queen and Prince Philip weren't there. They made kind of the after party. But however, things changed so much.
Yes, it wasn't like a royal wedding, was it? No, I think they just, was, as you say, a sort of
Windsor Guildhall.
And I think they went to a flagship Wetherspoons for the reception as well, what I'm told.
Yeah, those breakfasts are very cheap.
Well, that's right, it was Steak Thursday, so you can't argue with that.
Yes, indeed.
Sirloin steak and a pint for less than £7. But look, the funny thing is that she has actually settled into that role, not just of Queen, but of the King's spouse.
Yes.
Very well.
Yeah.
I don't think she's put a foot wrong since they got married.
No, some might say it was a PR masterclass, really, of actually, I mean, that is how you reinvent yourself, isn't it? But you're right, she hasn't put a foot wrong, and she's been there, and she's been solid, and she's been present ever since. So good for her.
And she puts up with the curmudgeonly King Charles, who can't even work a fountain pen. What else happened in 2005?
We had Prince Harry in the Nazi uniform. So this was days before, do you remember his 21st birthday? He was pictured, and the Sun run with this big world exclusive. And of course, he said, there's been lots of controversies over the years. He said, that is probably my biggest mistake. And he always tries to say, it was during my party years, I was young, I was stupid, but what a mistake to make.
It was, although things have gone so badly for him in this country in terms of his popular appeal that the kind of Nazi uniform era is almost like the good old days now, isn't it?
It is, isn't it, when you look back on things?
Because we obviously that was deeply ill-advised and profoundly offensive, but he was a guy that just drank a few beers. He was in the military.
Do you know the public liked him back then?
That was it.
Because he was kind of almost the prince next door, wasn't he?
Yes, that's a good description.
And we kind of looked at him and said, look, he's young and he makes mistakes, and he's kind of, I think the public thought, right up until the wedding, he's kind of one of us.
Yeah.
He's the royal family that most people, the royal family person that most people could relate to.
Well, one poll had him more popular than Queen Elizabeth, which is going
Isn't that incredible?
That has changed.
The 2 days, probably the most memorable days of this year, was the day that we won the 2012 Olympics back in 2005.
Amazing.
There were 4 points between Paris and London, but London won it. And I always remember seeing that breaking news and everybody in Trafalgar Square celebrating one of the greatest days for the nation. Of course, the following day, the 7/7 bombings. Within 24 hours, how things can change. These 4 coordinated terrorist attacks, 52 people lost their lives, 700 people died. But I just remember the juxtaposition of those 2 days next to each other. Everybody will remember 2005 for that early part of the summer.
It is crazy when news stories just like bookend each other. I mean, I remember it wasn't quite to the day, but we'd finally got through COVID. Pretty much the pandemic ended, and then Vladimir Putin invades Ukraine. And then we had the energy crisis and
back
inflation.
to back, and you were like, give us a break.
Yeah, can we have just like, can we have 6 months?
Can we have a week of just,
Or even a week. Even a week. But that was pretty spectacular.
Yes.
One more quick one before you go.
OK, you on TV, Channel 4, and a TV show called Balls of Steel, which was a groundbreaking series, wasn't it?
I was young, I needed the money. Listen, the thing about that show is it was politically incorrect.
Yes.
And people loved it, and you wouldn't be allowed to make it now.
OK.
But the funny thing is it's got an afterlife on YouTube where people watch it.
The views are just incredible, so congratulations.
The annoying devil and all of that.
How do you look younger now than you did in 2005?
A lot of plastic surgery, Pilates, and I've got the same nutritionist as Peter Cardwell.
Well, congratulations.
Steve Denyer, I hope you'll be back next week.
I'd love to.
See you at the same
nice
time.
To see you.
Top man. Well, Peter, what are you going to film?
The same nutritionist. You know what? Someone busted me yesterday because I was on